Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we chatted about Fontaine's past and possible future as we discussed Monsieur Nouvelette. This week, however, we will be talking about the newest release, the 5.1 Natlan Archon quest.
Are you feeling worn down, dejected, exhausted, wounded, and traumatized by a lack of visuals for this podcast? Well, good news. There's a backup plan. It's our website, talesofteyvat.com, where Tiff is killing it by providing you with pictures, visuals, and curated summaries of our content.
All while I cry. While you're on our site, check out our past episodes and seasons, artist spotlights from the community for every topic, and some other goodies.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. Additionally, you can feel free to give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts if you're enjoying Tales of Teyvat. If you're not enjoying Tales of Teyvat, I don't know why you're this far into this episode already, and we'd prefer you not to rate us. But it's up to you. My heart will try my best with all this trauma to take it on.
Be nice.
Be kind, rewind, bitches. Anyway, before we hop into this, I wanted to just make sure. I know we gave some warnings in the intro. We gave a bit of a warning in the title. This is a spoiler-heavy episode for anyone who has not touched Natlan. We're going to give a quick overview of where we left Natlan after 5.0, and we are going to talk about the entire 5.1 Archon quest. So if you have not found that waypoint that I couldn't find, and you are still in Fontaine swimming with the fishes, do not listen. I'm sorry. We love you. Goodbye. We'll see you next week when we talk about something else.
Yeah, and for those who want to hear our first Natlan episode, go back to episode 83, Natlan So Far. That's where we covered the Archon Quest 5.0, and this will, of course, be 5.1.
So, a quick recap. The last time we were in Natlan for an Archon quest, Mavuika, the Pyro Archon, and Il Capitano, the first Fatui Harbinger, had a fucking showdown.
Mm-hmm. Flying around, throwing ice and fire at each other. It was very epic.
I really enjoyed that fight. I know we mentioned it then too, and we rated our different fight scenes that we love, but I rewatched it again before coming in here, and I was just like, I love it. I thought it was fantastic.
I really liked it, but I feel like I do when I watch hockey, and I like watching hockey, so like it's okay. But you know, like your eyes are just darting around the screen. You really don't know where to look, and you're like, oh my God, where is the puck? That's how I felt. But this battle ends with Mavuika injuring Capitano and Capitano escaping with the help of an unknown entity from the Night Winds, which is one of the tribes of Natlan that we haven't been exposed to yet.
Yeah, the Masters of the Night Wind. And Mavuika knows that someone from that tribe helped him escape in his little cloud of smoke. And then we see Capitano in a cave talking to the person that helped them. And they were like, well, she could have dispelled it if she wanted to, but she chose not to.
Do you think that Mavuika can like smell the tribes? Like they all have a different like scent to them? Like if you went to Yankee Candle, you could pick a candle for each of them?
I hope not.
What is she, the Boar King? Bark, 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 bark.
No, I like to think that Masters of the Night Wind is Midsummer's Night by Yankee Candle. And that, like, the Skyans are, like, fresh-cut grass.
Wait, aren't Masters of the Night Wind sort of like fortune tellers? So it would make sense if they were into incense.
But this is a Yankee Candle.
Oh my God, they sound like patchouli.
You're like,
patchouli.
No. I'm talking about a Yankee Candle, Brandon.
Does Yankee Candle have patchouli?
Not that I am aware of. But I do like patchouli. I'll give them patchouli if we're talking essential oils. All right, we're going to Young Living now, where you got patchouli. I think that they also might be lavender, if that's the case. Just saying.
Just lesbian scents all around.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, they're my favorite scents.
Lesbians are your favorite scents?
I don't want to break it to you, but you're not a lesbian.
Damn it! My live streams are being crushed.
You're not straight either. You're like a gay twink lover.
So Twinkie.
Whatever that
Got
sexuality is.
Whatever that sexuality. Got it. Fanfic reader extraordinaire.
Queer voyeur.
But yeah, Yankee Candle aside, that there are no Yankee Candles near me, just like there are no Yankee Candles in Natlan. We end the Archon quest basically there. I mean, some other things happen, but they're not really important.
But I do think that Mavuika could tell who it was based on how they escaped.
Or based on how they smelled.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, wait, is Incense? Which one is Ianson a part of?
The weightlifters.
Does she smell?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they smell like BO?
Oh no.
They smell like Gatorade and G2. No, they're just the Paimon G Fuel.
They smell like, powdered protein and Gatorade.
Like pre-workout.
Yeah, when Iansan's around, it just smells like a gym.
Yeah.
And Mavuika was like, wait, something cut through the dirty hand towels.
And then Kanisha's just sitting there smelling like sadness. So she's like, the sadness and the dirty towels have been broken, and I can smell the patchouli. Fucking Auroran. It's patchouli mixed with radish.
Aphids.
And aphids. Which, let me tell you, I did the aphid event before this.
Mhm.
And I just button mashed it because I was like, I can't learn anything right now. And I was like, but what the fuck is an aphid? I was just like, okay,
You went all the way back to botany. You're like, what even is an aphid?
I didn't know what an aphid was.
Ew, I learned on a trivia show the other night that there are certain species of ant that will milk aphids for honeydew.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that disgusting?
Tiff, you got to stay away from them.
Insects are gross. I need to surround myself with bats.
It's not bad.
As somebody who has grown roses, I am very familiar with aphids because it's a prominent bug that you can get on your rose bushes. So I fought many aphids, so I was all ready. But while I think it was nice that they did tell you, like, hey, we're going to mention the 2 lines that have to do with the Archon, it was nice that they did warn people because you don't want the game to spoil you.
Yeah, of course.
But I also kind of feel like maybe the game about Auroran's aphids maybe should have waited till he came out.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense. They were like, we're gonna put out a quest right away that tells you that the war happened.
Yeah, I just feel like the event just seemed out of place.
Yeah, like they should have done like Nahida first, maybe, and then like Nahida birthday event, and then like did the aphids later.
I like you calling them aphids. Aphids.
Aphids, whatever. Aphids.
Aphids just a fancy way of saying it. I'm sure somebody says it that way.
Oh no, I prefer aphids.
Aphids.
Mhm.
Aphidias.
But you have to like hold a goblet while you say aphid. Where are the aphids?
Is it the Yohualtecuhtin goblet?
Yes. And there are dead bugs floating in the water.
The ants that you were talking about that get all the honeydew out of the real life aphids, these would get phlogiston out because they're phlogiston aphids, which just makes me feel like you should be able to walk around and pick them up and go faster.
I hate it.
Or, shoot a little BB out at the abyss to hurt them.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's aphid juice, if it's phlogiston aphid juice, maybe a little bit.
It would hurt me. I'd be on the ground.
It might take like a tick or 2 off of the abyss mage shields.
Wow, we're gonna jump back.
Just stop talking about bugs.
Unless Brandon's gonna bring a bat in, we're stepping away from the bugs.
I mean, I just want to be protected from bugs.
That would be a great way to do it.
Hasgrove eats bugs if you want.
Oh, that makes me think different things about that cute little tongue sticking out of his mouth.
It's only occasionally. He ate a lightning bug in front of me once. I was distraught. Anywho, aphids, lightning bugs, bats, those are not involved for the most part in the Archon quest. We go to bed. That's how we start. We go to bed
For 2 days.
With no pillows.
No, there are pillows on the bed. We just don't put our heads on the
My
pillows.
head is not on the decorative pillows.
I was all excited when they give you an overview shot of the Traveler and Paimon in the bed. I'm like, I'm going to prove this to fiends now that there are pillows. And them bitches did not put their heads on the pillow. And I was like, damn it. They're decorative.
An illusory pillow.
They're fake. Just like the sky. So we go into a 2-day slumber. We wake up and we're dazed, we're confused, we're hungry. We hear a commotion, we go outside, and we find out that things aren't great. The abyss is attacking. Not too bad yet. You know, it's kind of like what happened to us in the springs with Mualani, but a little more everywhere.
And also, Mavuika has decided to use the Scions of the Canopy and the Adventurers Guild to create a network that disseminates information quickly around the region to keep everyone updated as the abyss is sort of like encroaching around Natlan. So she's like in hardcore like gathering forces mode, and she's stationing different warriors around different parts of Natlan so that they can be ready to fight. So she has a lot of like strategic foresight, I thought.
Yeah, she's taking a play out of Kokomi's book for sure.
Yeah.
She's got to write volume 2 for her.
I don't know, man. We'll see what happens after the 5.2 Archon update.
Yeah,
She might not need it. But also, I think it's really interesting that you bring up that Mavuika is also controlling the Adventurers Guild. It brings in a lot of questions to me of like who the Adventurers Guild answers to. Is each nation's guild just responding to them? Meanwhile, Mondstadt has like a head of the Adventurers Guild. Like they have their own building. So I always assumed it was at a Mondstadt originally.
But we know it's Snezhnaya, right?
Yeah, we know Catherine is from Snezhnaya, so it's like, who the fuck is in control of this? And why is Catherine like bending to Mavuika too, right? Like we're gonna assume that Catherine's in charge of each guild's chapter. So I don't know, curiosities definitely struck me in those moments. Anyway, though, so we do find out that she's putting all these camps everywhere so that they're ready to fight the abyss. We end up going to the Children of the Echoes because we need to talk to Xilonen about getting an ancient name. She looks like she's about damn ready to kill us at that moment.
Yeah, she's a busy woman.
Yeah, she is. But she's like up for the task. She's like, yeah, Mavuika told me I need to forge an ancient name for you. But she didn't realize that we were an Outlander. And she tells us that forging ancient names for Outlanders is usually impossible because brave deeds must be recorded by the Night Kingdom in order to forge one. But that the Night Kingdom also doesn't usually record deeds from people who aren't Natlanese, which is the first time that we learn that it's Natlanese and not Natlanian, like we were calling it before.
I'm going to keep to Natlanian. I also would like to throw out there, though, that it's interesting because this starts to make sense to us now. We're like, oh, yeah, the ley lines are fucked. So we don't have really ley lines here. We have a Night Kingdom. And it would make sense that the Night Kingdom is only going to control what's in its boundaries, especially if we remember from the last Archon quest that the Wayobs only protect people from Natlan when they're in Natlan.
Right, because it's like a regional replacement of the ley lines.
It's like an electric fence.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Keeping your dog safe in the fence. But the second you let your dog out of the fence, you're fucked. You have no protections for your pet or your kid, whatever you're putting around the electric fence. I don't know.
I just like at that moment that I had the same reaction that I think Paimon did, which was like, wait, what? Look what we did already. We did all this stuff. And now you're saying that you don't know. And then it was like, oh, okay, I guess it makes sense.
And even Kachina's like, they've done so much. I've seen their list. I'm like, you have a list?
Going with the electric fence metaphor, I'm going to throw out water sprinkler system.
Okay.
So that it nourishes you if you're in the vicinity of it. If you leave, you're going to
drown. I mean,
no, not drown. You're going to run out of water.
You're going to drought. You're going to dehydrate.
You're going to drown.
Drought or drown.
I like the Jalonen's just like, well, yeah, this is impossible, but not for me because I'm awesome.
Well, she's just like, well, she trusted me to do it, so I'm going to get it done. And she's like, if we're going to actually be able to do this, we're going to have to consult with this Granny Eatsley, aka Citlali, who is an expert at all things Wyob and the Night Kingdom, because she knows if we're going to have to get the Night Kingdom or the Wyobs to help us like forge an ancient name for someone that's not from here, like we got to get permission from them, first of all. But in order to get permission from them to do that, we need an expert on them. And so that is, of course, Citlali.
The problem here being that we're on Citlali's shit list because we broke an ancient artifact of hers when we were trying to get Kachina's ancient name out during the first Archon quest.
And she's also usually just holed up in her room and rarely takes visitors because she's a quote unquote granny.
Because there's no therapists in this game.
We don't know she's depressed yet.
We actually see her locked away in her room as well during the Natlan trailer. Like the first time we ever see her, she's like hidden in a room and like a ball hits her and she's like, "Rah!"
Oh, I don't remember that. Wow.
It was, a story that like where they introduced all the characters very quickly. Kanish was like sitting in a treetop.
Oh, yeah. But I know that Shilonen, she writes a recommendation letter, which I thought was funny. Like it's so formal in this part of the game. She writes a recommendation letter and then Kanish is going to deliver it to her because, he's sort of like a liaison, like he's a good communicator and deliverer.
I mean, he was able to get the Spirit Seeker Stone away from her, so we might as well trust him.
Like, sorry, we broke your thing. Can you help us more?
Yeah, we got another one.
Do you think he just has a house shout at her until she's like, I can't take it anymore. I'll help you.
I'm hoping that Ahau was locked far, far away for this conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, pestering mortals, just give it to us. Just fucking help or let Kanish die already.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that matters to that guy. But we end up meeting up, with Kanish and Xilonen at like that Statue of the Seven that is so popular for meeting up. We also met there with Kachina at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we find out the person from the Masters of the Nightwind who helped Capitano was almost certainly Auroran.
Yeah.
Like everyone is sort of like, we're pretty sure it was him. And we find out that he lives alone. And Citlali knows that he was probably involved because he was missing for a while from his house. And he lives sort of like on the outskirts of the tribe of the Masters of the Nightwind.
Which is also interesting because it's like they're not necessarily accusing him because of his personality, but because he was missing, which is nice.
Well, I don't think Citlali would allow it because she's very protective of him. We don't at this point know all that much why, but like, she's just like, he did not do this. Like, he must have been forced. Like, he was totally like, my kid didn't do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Must be somebody else.
It spread through the grapevine pretty quickly. I mean, Shilonen's the one that sort of says it first, right? And then Citlali's like, she had heard that Citlali was like, wait, he's been missing for a while. So there's a lot of gossip happening right now.
I know. It's so funny because Xilonen and Mavuika are very like girls,
Mm-hmm.
They're the besties who go shopping together and like believe everything each other says. And I could totally see them gossiping together about all of this as well.
Yeah, it's also kind of interesting too that the person who noticed that Auroran was missing was the one who's been locked up in her room. Like you said, she spends all of her time in her room. How long was he really gone? Because it's not like she would have noticed like the next day.
Yeah, I took that as meaning like they're trying to establish so many things right up front. Like, first of all, Citlali is a granny who stays holed up in her room and doesn't take visitors, but that she's also the one that knew that Auroran wasn't at his house for a while. So it's sort of connecting Citlali to Auroran.
Yeah. As like a maternal figure right away.
You blink and you miss it. Like it's a lot of setup happening very quickly.
Yeah.
Do you think though that she could have also been using like her psychic powers to know that he was gone from her room? Because she keeps suggesting that she's got like, I mean, we've seen good powers from her already, but the way that she talks, I'm like, man, this woman probably knows my brother, my history, my social security number. Like,
she's Big Granny. Big
Granny.
So we head over to the stadium to go meet with Big Granny, and we're not really sure she's going to be there because, like Fiend said, hasn't responded and stuff, but we're like, let's just still go, and we're hanging around, and of course Paimon's talking shit about Granny and like, oh my god, why is this old lady gonna come over and like help us, and what is she really gonna be able to do? And of course Citlali was standing right behind her, which Jalonen's like, I guess I should have told you that she was young.
Yeah, like she's not an actual granny, and it's very awkward.
It's very awkward. She's just like, you talking about me?
Uh-huh. But then she's also just socially awkward.
Yeah.
And so everyone just feels bad.
She's like, I was going to come over here and I was going to talk to you and be helpful, but now I don't know what to say. It's so funny listening to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we tell her what's going on, and she's like, I'll help you, forge this new ancient name for the Traveler if you help me prove Auroran's innocence. And we're like, well, here we go. Is this an Aranara quest? Like,
oh, really? You want help?
is this the Pari again?
Everybody wants some help. Nobody can just give us what we want.
A nested quest line. We love it.
The nested quest line that didn't even get fucking resolved.
Yeah.
But we agree nonetheless, because we are that bitch that just says yes to everything.
Well, also, Citlali tells us that our task is outside of the Wyob's jurisdiction, and that we're actually going to need the help of the Lord of the Night, who is the entity that uses the sacred flame to combat the corrosion of the abyss. And she says that the Lord of the Night is currently slumbering, so that the only way that we will be able to talk to it is in a trance or dream. And she establishes like which ingredients are needed to put us in the trance or dream. And then Shilonen runs off to get those ingredients while Traveler Paimon and Citlali go in search of Auroran. Funny that, Shilonen is like running off on an errand that will be inconsequential ultimately.
Yeah.
We don't know that yet.
But we end up going with Citlali to find the last location that Auroran was seen, which is nowhere near his home because we don't have access to his home. And we walk around, we end up following the energy off of him. It's like different phlogiston. And Citlali shares her power with us to see the phlogiston because we can't originally see it. But she accidentally also gives us the power to read her mind.
Awkward.
And hear all her thoughts, which honestly was adorable because she just the whole time was like, okay, I'm doing great, but what if they hate me? But oh my God, but what about this? And oh, I should have punched Paimon in the face. And Traveler and Paimon are both hearing this and they look at each other like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, I think instead of just depression, she definitely at least has anxiety, maybe anxiety and depression.
She's definitely both. She is a manic queen. She's a high functioning person despite her mental illness, She's like out there doing the most, trying to make things work. She's an overachiever at that as well. And from reading her mind, we really get the impression that she just wants to do the best for as many people as she can, and that includes Auroran.
Yeah, she feels a lot of duty to Auroran.
So anyway, we continue to read her mind, and we're kind of like, whatever. And we end up splitting up. And when we split up, the Traveler gets dizzy and hazy. Oh no, we're yet again being attacked by some crazy power that only we can see.
Yeah, so we sit down. All of a sudden, it's like one of those like daydreams that reminded me of the Sumeru when we smelt that funny stuff and like went off into some crazy world.
More incense.
Was it incense? Was it patchouli? We were smelling patchouli and Sumeru. It's been following us all along. But so now we're sitting there in this like weirdo place and it's the Night Kingdom. And basically Auroran like comes up behind us like with his hand on his shoulder and he's like, don't worry. I'm just here to ask you some questions. That's how I imagine he really talks.
Wow.
It wasn't exactly like that. I kind of love Auroran.
I'm here to ask you questions about your car's extended warranty. I'm glad to finally have met you here in the Night Kingdom.
The best was though, he tells us like not to run. And it's like, where the fuck are we running? We're like in the middle of like some dreamscape that looks like the Night Kingdom and we don't know what's going on. We're going to run. But Capitano appears too, and he's just like, you should not trust Mavuika. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Her plan isn't good. But if you want to know more about what my plan is, you should come and meet me over in this random spot to the left of the stadium.
Teenagers.
To the left of the stadium.
The left of the stadium. It's east. Probably right. I don't know. Go meet us over there, like, in some like back alley. Yeah, it's like totally like, I got the drugs for you, but you want to like come over to this alley? We can do a little dealy.
Oh.
But we wake up and we're like, maybe we're not going to tell Citlali and Paimon about this right now. There's a lot going on.
We're intrigued.
They asked us not to. So we also are very like, we do obey a lot of things.
We'll listen to the Fatui Harbinger today. Not the first, not the last time.
Well, we listen more to Auroran, I feel like. Capitano, of course, is like, let's talk more. And Auroran is like, please do not tell Citlali because I don't want her involved. And so when we wake up, Citlali shows up. We have to kind of make a spur of the moment decision. And we feel like we don't have enough information yet. So maybe it's safer to not tell her yet. So that's what we decide.
Yeah, and we make up some excuse and she doesn't really believe us at first. And she almost like wants to accuse us of lying. But then when she sees that we're really not looking that great, she's like, actually, we're going to take a break. And she becomes very like motherly toward us. And I think that's the moment when she decides that we're going to be friends.
Mhm.
Yeah, that we need some help. Meanwhile, we're probably just looking crappy because we're lying and we're not very good at it. Like guilt's eating us up.
So we end up deciding to keep it to ourselves until later when we're back in the city. We end up splitting up with Citlali, and we are with just Paimon, and we do tell Paimon everything that's happening. And we're like, hey, this is actually happened when I passed out. And Paimon's like super gracious. And she's like, thank you so much for telling me and like including me in this. And I'm like, oh, you're welcome, best friend. Like, I got you, boo.
Best friend, little sister.
Yeah, why don't we have friendship bracelets with Paimon yet?
Yeah.
Like, we're missing that, truly. But we decide that we're going to go to the left of the stadium, and we're going to go meet the captain.
Well, don't we first like actually find Auroran?
Well, we go back to the stadium with Auroran and Citlali, and we have to sort of explain Auroran's situation to, I guess, the guards or whatever the millilith of the stadium is.
Oh, the millilith, is it? Well, we find him at the Fatui camp and we beat all the people up, and like she yells at him like ridiculous. And it's kind of like you get in trouble like in front of your friends too. So it's like that awkward kind of like watching your friend get yelled at by their mom.
Yeah.
And like, all right, let's go back and go explain what happened to the millilith.
Yeah, we skipped over that part. So when we wake up, Citlali finds us and she's like, I found the Fatui camp where they're holding Auroran. So we go and we quote unquote save him. And he tells us that they just asked him questions about Natlan's terrain and had him draw maps of the ley lines, and that he helped Capitano because they said that they'd go after Citlali if he didn't. But then he kind of gives us this look of like, keep our secret, bro.
I'm like, no. I'm going to tell Paimon.
I'm pretty sure Traveler's just like, But at the time, we're kind of like, I guess we'll keep it for now, question mark. And so that's when we go back to the stadium. And then we have to like explain the whole situation to the millilith of the stadium.
The millilith.
The shogunate, the stadium shogunate. Yeah, and so like whoever the guard that we're talking to is like, okay, I guess because of the explanation, we're not going to throw Auroran in jail, especially if Citlali is vouching for him. So he's released for now. And so Citlali and him like head off to find lodging for the night.
This is very different than the judicial system of Fontaine, by the way. Like,
absolutely.
we would like this random military bro was like, yeah, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, they're kind of like that in Natlan. It's great.
They all love each other. They all kind of want to die.
Like, you seem good. You have like a reputation of like honor, so it's fine.
He's like, I'm gonna trust you because you're with Granny.
I feel like he was afraid to have to deal with Citlali too. He was like, yeah, you okay. She says so as long as you don't come after me.
Yeah. And so then later we head off to meet at the planned spot.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, with Ororan and Capitano. And that's when Capitano tells us the gossip.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling us who slept with who.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling us who's going out to dinner with who.
Who battled who.
The fact that he was like, child vouched for you. So, you know.
I literally sent Brandon a message and I was like, child's talking about me. Pray tell, Capitano. Pray tell. I was like, please continue.
Oh, yeah. And I was like, huh? Because I didn't even remember that line from the quest.
You know, the things that stuck with me.
I think for myself, I just went, oh my God, Phoenix is going to love that.
Yeah.
I also feel like there's a hint of like, that's their hint the child's going to show up in that land. Just saying. He's shown up like half of the other places, so you never know. And he wants to fight this guy, you know? So come fight his rotting soul.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up like near the end.
He's like, what have you been doing? You're supposed to get the gnosis. Mom's mad.
Don't you feel like at the very least he's going to show up at the end to sort of usher us into Snezhnaya?
Yeah, he's got to be the one to bring us there.
We just find Tusser. We're like, Tusser, what the fuck?
So Citlali and Auroran, they had allegedly gone to sleep, but then later that night, we go off and we meet with Ororon and Capitano. And this is where Capitano tells us not just the gossip about Child,
The only gossip that matters, though.
but the other gossip about Mavuika's plan to use the 6 awakened heroes being risky AF, which is funny because Feeney talked about that in our first Natlan episode this season. And so he's sort of echoing like the concerns that Feeney had.
Oh my God, I'm a harbinger.
I know. I was like, is Feeney Capitano? That's
Oh,
theory
no.
number one.
No, I'm just Amanda.
You told us last week that father indoctrinated you from the escalator at Javits Center. So
I hate to tell you, I'm married to Child now. And this is just the life that I have to live.
And you just pretend to be Capitano. You actually killed Capitano and took over his identity.
Yeah. And I have like a voice changer, and that's why I'm like, oh yeah, my body's rotting. You
like
can't
in
see
Scream.
me. Yeah, exactly.
Like Ghostface. I got it. So he tells us that her plan to use the 6 awakened heroes is risky, but that she has a backup plan involving her gnosis that could save Natlan, but at a great cost, and that he's convinced that she's not going to do it in time, and that the Abyss is going to destroy Natlan. And that's when Citlali arrives, because of course she does. She's like spying on us. And Capitano disappears. And then she just lays into Auroran because she's like, you were colluding with the Fatui this whole time, and I've been defending you to everyone. What is wrong with you? And he's like, well, I'm so sorry, grandma/mom, but I'm going to use this little spore powder that I created to make an illusion and disappear and run away with Capitano. Bye.
They only realize it because his audio starts to sound like one of us when we get too far away from the fucking mic. He's like, okay, bye, guys. Okay, Granny, gotta go.
yeah. But there was like a moment where I was like, wait, am I hearing that? Are they hearing that?
Also, my favorite thing is that every time you hear Auroran apologize in this entire Archon quest, it's, I'm really sorry, Granny. It does not change. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, Granny. I'm really sorry. Like, he's just this every fucking time. I'm like,
and
bro.
She's like, what's wrong with you?
He's like, don't spank me, Granny.
Granny, no. Also, Granny, no spanking, Granny. She said, Granny, at least use the belt.
Oh.
Anyway, back to this.
This just got as awkward as Citlali.
We're like, okay, he's gone. I need a drink.
We don't need a drink. She needs a drink.
Ali needs a drink.
Yeah.
She is my kind of woman. I feel like she is my spirit animal. She's depressed, anxious, and needs a drink. There you go. Me in a nutshell.
She gets a little overboard, yeah.
And I love the eyes. I was obsessed with the fact that her eyes changed to these like glazed over like glass. They're so funny.
Yeah, they did the funniest version of that for her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of up there with Venti on the boat to the festival.
What, when he's asleep?
What was the Inazuma festival with
Iridori.
where he's like takes the ship to Inazuma and he's passed out on the boat. That was really funny to me.
He's passed out on the boat and then he wakes up in the storage unit basically and is like, hoo, alcohol.
Yeah.
He goes, yahoo.
So Lolly's like drunk thing was like up there with Venti's for me. It was very comical, but also like, girl, are you okay?
I love getting drunk characters. But yeah, this poor woman gets like super wasted, and this NPC who's like the owner of the bar is like, Granny, like, don't drink too much. Are you okay? Like, you can tell she's a regular customer here, despite the fact that she's always locked up in her room.
Oh yeah. She's also like, it's so nice to see you with a friend.
So she's going there late at night by herself, basically, to drink when everyone thinks she's locked away in her room.
Mm-hmm.
And she has this moment where she thinks she's gonna puke. And the bartender is like, not out here, just wait one moment. And then she burps and she's like, I'm good. And she points at us too. Like, she aggressively points at the Traveler. She's like, you. And Traveler points to themselves. She's like, me. What? What's happening? It's like when your parents get drunk, and you're like, I don't know what's happening right now. Like,
well, yeah. And then she goes into like a trance.
Oh, she meditates.
And is like super articulate. Yeah.
And the bartender tells us that that's normal.
Yeah.
So she does this all the time. I'm like, how, like, and I know that's real life bartenders too. Like, they deserve such a pat on the fucking back and a raise. You're dealing with these, like, drunkards who just start meditating at your bar on a regular basis. Come on.
Yeah, it was a little wild. But she calms down eventually. We take her out for some fresh air. And that's when she tells us more about Auroran and how he was abandoned on a rock in the wilderness as a child.
Oh,
Orphan
don't
alert.
tell me. An orphan.
Orphans!
And he was taken in by the Masters of the Nightwind, and that he has an incomplete soul, whatever that means. And that's usually a bad omen within the tribe.
You think? I mean, I'm going to go with an incomplete soul is a bad omen everywhere. Any culture, everybody's going to be, and maybe not the Goths. The Goths, we might be okay with it.
I kind of like it.
Wouldn't you think that like someone would be like an incomplete soul that's so like we need to help them, that's so sad, like maybe they're like less fortunate than us, but they're like, no, this is bad, it's a bad omen.
They go sacrifice the baby. Oh my god, like that's literally like the baby must be
The
gone.
excitement.
This isn't a bad omen, this is the movie Omen. Like with a little kid, this is the devil, we need to figure out a way to get rid of it.
It's Rue all over.
Or Inkanomiya.
And economia. It's all of it. Why are there so much child sacrifice?
Just like in real life.
And Sethos
Just like in real life. I feel like they really kind of opportunistic and resourceful about it, if you want to get technical. Because they have this problem, right?
They're resourceful with the death of the child.
They were actually being resourceful because
if we're gonna kill them, we might as well use them.
well, they have this problem, the Masters of the Nightwind. I mean, well, all of Natlan has this problem where when the Night Kingdom gets damaged, souls that are in there are dispersed and sort of left adrift, and they're not able to return to the Night Kingdom's version of the ley lines. And so the Masters of the Nightwind tribe, they were like, oh, here's an opportunity to use little baby Auroran as a vessel, because of his incomplete soul, to collect the adrift souls in the Night Kingdom. And then we can send him down into the Night Kingdom to return those adrift souls back to the ley lines. But we know from 5.0 that sending a regular human down into the Night Kingdom for that long would kill them. So, they want to use him as a vessel because of his weird soul situation and return those souls to the ley lines, but they also know that that would be sacrificing this child. And the chief of the village asked Citlali, her opinion on the situation at the time, and she refused to give her approval, but she also did not object to it because she also sort of saw the benefit to the whole nation. And so she feels really guilty and responsible about that. And that's sort of the backstory of like why she is so all over Auroran. She's like overprotective. She feels so much guilt. She has all these emotions. It all goes back to that point where she didn't do something more to keep the village from going through with that ceremony. And then the ceremony ended up failing, of course, so Auroran survived. And so then Auroran, as he grew up, he starts feeling guilty too for quote unquote failing the tribe and not being strong enough or whatever for that ceremony to succeed. So he's like, well, great, this tribe that adopted me as an orphan baby, the one good thing I could do for them was to sacrifice myself to like restore all these souls back to their ley lines. And I couldn't do that. So now I'm even more of an outsider. So he's feeling guilty. He's feeling bad. Citlali's feeling guilty. She's feeling bad for not sticking up more for Auroran. So they have that interesting dynamic where he's trying to pull away and she's trying to grasp onto him.
And it's very interesting because the tribe kind of has the mindset of, what does it matter if we sacrifice one if we're going to help the plenty? And so, we're going to help so many people if we sacrifice this baby. And I feel like it's very reflective of the situation in Natlan and Mavuika's decision to not follow Capitano's plan, because she feels like Capitano's plan, we'll see soon, is going to hurt everyone instead of helping them. Mm-hmm. And so for her plan is like, why would I do that if it's really just going to ruin most people's lives? Like, what's
Yeah.
the point of living if they're not going to be able to be themselves
Mhm.
and stuff like that, which we'll get into.
Yeah, and I know Tiff brought this up last week during the Nouvellette episode about just a big part of the human conundrums is like the one versus the many.
Hmm.
So we're seeing that echoed again here in Natlan.
Yeah, it's a common theme. I think we probably actually find it in most of the nations and stuff. We've kind of come across it. And I mean, I know I mentioned Rue, but it's kind of a part of that as well. Like if we
Yeah.
sacrifice one, we can save the rest of the tribe. There's a lot of stuff that kind of goes back and forth with that.
But Rue also decided to sacrifice himself.
But it's still
He was like, I'll die.
Auroran apparently was just like, sure.
Yeah. If he had the wherewithal at the time that the ceremony was happening.
Yeah, if he had been not a baby.
Yeah.
At that point, too, how many souls you really throwing in a baby?
Yeah,
I mean,
I was
apparently
curious
a lot.
too.
Like half a soul. Like how much you sticking in there? Is he taking one at a time?
How fragmented is his soul? Does he have like a fleck of a soul?
Well, the dog whistle fucked with his soul, so
The dog whistle.
yeah, that was like the dog whistle. Later on, that's what I'm gonna call it for now.
Okay.
Yeah, it is crazy though, and it's also like Tiff was just saying, like he has half a soul, so doesn't that mean you could only fit half a soul in him? I like their whole technique didn't make sense to me.
It's interesting because we also know that there are like fragments of souls. Like, was his body going to be a vessel for fragments of souls or for entire souls?
And here's my other question: is like, are there other people like Auroran in Teyvat?
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me he's the only person with a fragmented half-ass soul.
Yeah, how did that happen? They did make it a point. Citlali like did say that no one knows who his parents are. So that was kind of interesting because instead of just being like he was an orphan found, but she like they made it a point to say no one knows who his parents are or were. So could they be revealed later? Probably not, but
I do hope though that when he gets a story quest that they'll
yeah, I'm sure they will dive into that for sure.
It's also like, this half a soul thing. Like, this is the only nation where they would actually be able to know that.
You think Mona couldn't scry that?
Okay, so maybe Mondstadt / leeway, depending on the day, but you know what I mean? Like, Mona would have to come in contact with you. Like, she would have to meet you. Like, here you have the Wayobs watching souls. Like, I think there's a lot more connection and
Mhm.
spirituality in Natlan to realize that, opposed to these other nations.
Yeah, and the Masters of the Night Wind are very connected to the Night Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So they have like a attunement to the souls of the citizens of Natlan, I'm guessing, because they're sort of tied into Natlan's ley lines. It's
Yeah.
interesting because they're throwing the word soul around a lot in Natlan, and before this nation, they didn't do that too often.
No.
But when they would talk about ley lines, they would talk more about like memories or
Mhm.
past events. And in Natlan, it's suddenly like souls here, souls there. So I thought that's kind of fun to think about.
That is because in Inazuma during A's second story quest, we see all of those samurai and stuff. And they're portrayed directly, like you said, they're memories and pieces of the past. Even the woman who I forgot her name, oh my goodness, with the kitsune mask, like she's a memory, not so much ever referred to as a soul, where, yeah, everything here is they are the person. It's still them. It's not just a figment.
Right. It's like someone coming back from a ley line in Azuma, let's say, and is repeating a past event. Would that be considered like a soul fragment?
Maybe.
Like that they would describe in, Natlan?
Is it totally a piece of the fact that those are ley lines and this is the Night Kingdom, and that's why we really have that separation?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that in Natlan, you don't have the ley lines to project the memories like you do everywhere else. And we know that people's humanity is tied to the Wayob already, because if they leave Natlan, they don't get protected. And I feel like they decided to start using the word soul here in a grounding way. So we've had a lot of theories leading up to here of a fake sky. Does that mean all the people of Teyvat are fake? Is everyone here real? Are they dead? Are they just constellations fallen to the ground? Are they robots? Like there's all these questions. And I think bringing up that they have a soul now is supposed to ground you in the fact that these are real people. This is not a Honkai Impact video game. We're not a video game being played by Kiana. We are not fake people. We aren't all made of chalk. Like, this is really, and I mean, it insinuates that Albedo might have a soul too, right? It's like all these people on Teyvat have souls. They are real. Like, when you bring in the spirituality factor, instead of like, and I love memories and I love dreams and stuff like that. Like, you guys all know that I'm into that stuff. I think that that's all like kind of like timey-wimey bullshit still, though. Like, okay, memories, cool. Memories can be changed. We know that from the Loom of Fate. So I don't believe any of my memories, but I can believe a soul. And so I think bringing the soul in this late in the game is trying to ground us and reminding us that these are real people and that there is stuff at stake, not just finding our sibling.
I'm going to share my thoughts because I don't believe in souls, just personally. But I think that, like, what I think of a soul is consciousness, like a person's consciousness, and that includes their memories and their past events and everything. So I do kind of think of them as the same. And I will just say, for the sake of argument, that we later learn, which we'll talk about soon, that the Night Kingdom is created from the remnants of the original ley lines. So if these souls, quote unquote, are actually different from whatever's in the ley lines and the rest of Teyvat, that means that whoever created the Night Kingdom somehow injected something different into them.
Well, I'm not saying that the souls are different. I'm just saying that we won't get memories and things here like we do in the other nations, where I think the soul is more of the grounding factor in Natlan as opposed to like memories in the ley lines. Like, they had to do something else here. Because I agree with you. I think that it wouldn't make sense if everything was different. Like, what are we injecting, right? Like, what are they finding?
Well, it's weird because we know that the memories have something to do with the Night Kingdom because of the ancient names, especially when it comes to forging the Traveler's ancient name. And it's all about like their past deeds and everything and how that gets passed down. So there is some similar stuff happening, but it's really interesting how I think you're right, is that it's more grounded in the way that whatever the memories and fragments that are flowing through the Night Kingdom are, it's more like the person collected as a whole, as opposed to like little bits and pieces floating around. But we also know that that happens in the Night Kingdom because when we first meet Citlali, and we kind of skipped over this, but when we first meet her, she like does a little spell or something to clean some fragments of souls that were clinging onto us when we left the Night Kingdom. And we're going to see that here again soon when we get to it. But there's another person that's able to do magic like that. But that's interesting that there's like soul fragments floating around in the Night Kingdom. I'm wondering if the Masters of the Night Wind saw, when they were looking at Auroran as a vessel for lost adrift souls, are those whole intact souls or are they little fragments of souls? Because we've seen fragments and then we're going to get there, but we also see entire souls that are like floating around doing things. So,
no, you're right. But where did we leave off?
So the incomplete souls. And like we were explaining, Citlali's like explaining to us all of Auroran's past and how he has an incomplete soul. She explains when the Night Kingdom gets damaged, souls get dispersed, blah, 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 his whole past, and then how he survived. Everyone feels bad. She feels guilty. He feels guilty. And then they all go to sleep.
And then we're like, you know what? I'm a little tired.
And then we wake up the next morning and there's a commotion.
More chaos.
We find out that the Abyss has attacked a bunch of the outposts and the tribes all at the same time. So it's like craziness. So we head on over to Mavuika because we're like, well, we got to talk to her about this.
We're like, we found out that you have a backup plan.
Want to tell us about that, please?
And she's like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, she's like, I don't know if you bitches are going to wake up from your little dreams and become heroes. Of course, I have to have something in the back. She's not like that at all. She does not want to use this backup plan. I've made her much sassier than she is. So she confirms that the Gnosis can do with what the captain's saying, but it comes at a heavy price, and that the Gnosis would drain all the souls from the Night Kingdom and cast them as a net over the ley lines to protect them from abyssal corrosion.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is that it would sacrifice the souls and their memories. It would erase history, erase culture, and it would kind of only be temporary because the net could get corroded. So they would still need to fix the ley lines anyway, or else it could be for nothing. So
Right.
she's just like, it's not worth it. And, she's also very surprised that he was able to find this out because it's supposedly, a very well kept secret. I mean, she tells us all of it immediately, but, it's well kept nonetheless. But we also tell Mavuika, too, that the captain has another plan, but it's really dangerous as well. But, like, she's like, he doesn't have the gnosis. What could he possibly be doing?
Dragon stuff.
Dragon shit.
That's always the answer in Natlan. Dragon stuff.
Dragon time. Dragon tales, dragon tales.
After our talk with Mavuika, there's a lot of like commotion going on. There's like abysses starting to ramp up their attacks. Everyone's needing help. She's like trying to, strategically place people and like send out resources and everything. We end up going with Mualani, Shilonen, and Kachina to protect people at the Children of the Echoes. And we're like updating them on everything. And it's so funny because wasn't Mavuika like, don't tell anyone any of this? And then we immediately tell everyone. We tell Mualani, Shilonen, and Kachina. We're like, girls, guess what's going on?
I know. I guess it's like, we assumed we could tell the people that already knew like the game plan,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're already heroes, right?
Not Kachina. I mean, she's a hero in her own accord, right? But she's not one of like...
I just thought that was funny. Like gossip time.
Not the nation of war, but the nation of goss.
Yeah.
Of hot goss.
We head back to the stadium, and that's when we meet Chaska and Koichi, who tell us that they saw Fatui out in the wild helping random Natlanese. And they decided to follow them and work together to find out what the Fatui were looking for.
Like sisters should.
Yeah, and we get this really cute scene where they're like, of course they have to like fight and Koichi has to like convince Chaska to take her with her and everything. But eventually they're just like doing their secretive plan to find out what the Fatui are doing, and they're like doing all these hand signals across the ravine and everything, and it's very cute and very like you're rooting for them the whole time. And the whole time I'm thinking, this bitch is gonna die.
Stop.
I was thinking it the whole time. I'm like, let me see, we have a character who is very important to one of the playable characters, who is now having this bonding moment in game that's in an Archon quest with the playable character that does not have a vision, is not going to become playable. They're going to use this hoe as a plot device to do something with Chaska. Did y'all see that at all? Like, was it just, I saw?
Not at all. That wasn't even a thought in my mind. Although I do kind of go into things without trying to overthink them, because I like to just kind of, I try to turn off my brain and just kind of go, let's just see where the story goes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like the, ignorance is bliss type of deal.
I guess like I knew she was going to get hurt because we know that she got hurt during this adventure. So I wasn't really thinking she was going to die. I was like, just tell me how she gets hurt. That's what I'm here for.
Well, yeah, I will say her getting injured was like, it threw me off a little bit. Because it was like, okay, maybe they won't kill her. They're just like establishing Chaska's bond. But like at the same time, that also it was like the whole point. So I wasn't surprised when what happened, but that's further down. So Chaska and Koichi are like doing their little covert mission to find out what the Fatui are doing. They find out that they were actually looking for something called the source mechanism for Capitano.
Dragon shit.
Dragon shit, exactly.
Dragon shit.
So this is all like being told to us like via flashback while we're talking to Mavuika. And so they're sort of relaying that to all of us in Mavuika. And then Citlali shows up and she's like, Auroran went back to the Nightwind village to help with all the attacks that are happening. And she tells us that she used this special gem that's in a talisman that he uses on a rotating basis to keep his soul stable. What?
I know. I was like, excuse me? Like, where did that come from, bitch? Why didn't you bring that up? You literally poured your heart out to us last night about his situation. That never came up once. Like, I'm looking at my bullet pointed list and that never happened.
I mean, it makes sense that if his soul is that fragmented and tiny, that he would need something to keep it stable within Natlan, right? Where you have all these like crazy souls and soul fragments floating around trying to like take people's bodies and shit. Like it makes sense that he would need something to keep his little tiny fragment of a soul stable in his body.
I'm getting a little uncomfortable talking about his tiny soul.
Listen, it's not the size of the soul that matters, Tip. It's what you do with it, okay?
Yeah, we learned that too. But the funniest thing to me about this whole soul fragment too is that Citlali knows that she can't give it to him, that he's not going to come anywhere near her, basically. And so she gives it to Aoife, and we've heard Aoife mention in some like character voice lines before, but Aoife is like the Saurian vet who kind of looks like Sino, but we've only seen like a drawing picture of him, so like, you know, white hair, basically. Slightly tanner than the rest of Teyvat. But Aoife's like this vet, and he's also like besties with Auroran, and so she's able to use him to get this crystal to him and get the old crystal back. Citlali were like, why does it matter that you got this gemstone? And she's like, because we're gonna read his old mind. I'm like, what?
His old mind.
Yeah, like the mind of the last few days. And we're like, what do you mean? She's like, well, memories are gonna come back into play now, and we're gonna look at all of his memories to figure out what the fuck went down.
She somehow was able to get the old gem from his talisman. Like, as soon as it was collected, I guess she enchanted the bag that they put it in. And so the bag leached the old gem's memories into it. It's very convenient and confusing. So, yeah, they're like, we're going to look at his old memories. That's really all that we need to know.
She's scary. That's what the other thing we need to know.
She really is.
She does a lot of stuff really powerfully, very quickly.
She can make telepathy happen. She can see people's futures. She can grab their past out of their heads. Like,
flick away like some empty souls that are just hanging around.
yeah.
Imagine she's the old hag.
I mean, they call her an old hag.
I know, but imagine she's like Mona's master.
Ooh.
What if she's Mona's master's master?
I mean, then she'd really be old, which is also confusing because I want to know how much Citlali knows. Like, then I cannot figure out her age. Like, I don't know if she's actually old. I don't know if she's young or old. I know she's not in her 20s because she says Auroran's in his 20s.
Well, I believe she's younger than 500 because at some point she says she has a line that says something like, am I not going to do such and such until I'm 500 years old? Something like that.
Okay, because I was going to say, who does she know is my question, and what does she know? But that's a good point. But yeah, so we go back into his minds, and the first thing that really stuck out to me, once you get past the radishes and the aphids, is that when the Fatui did originally approach him, they were looking for Citlali, so he was telling the truth. That his initial thought process was, I need to protect Granny. And I thought that was wholesome.
Yeah, definitely.
But then he got all, what's my purpose on us? And he was like, yeah, I'm going to finally find my purpose with the first Fatui Harbinger.
Well, he follows him to find out what he's about, and he sees him using what we learn is called soul fairy magic, SOULFERRY, as in I'm going to ferry the soul to its destination type of thing. See, and that's the same magic that we knew Citlali used on us when we first met her to get rid of the clinging soul fragments. So Ororon sees Capitano use that magic on one of his underlings to cleanse these like wayward soul whatevers. And he becomes intrigued. He's like, how does he know how to do that? Like, that's a Masters of the Nightwind thing. So now he's like, something bigger's happening here. And so he keeps following him. It leads him to the stadium where Capitano has his first fight with Mavuika from 5.0. And then he makes it a point to say, I think it's when Capitano gets wounded that he feels a similar disturbance where it feels like a soul is trying to escape. And then he's like, what's going on here? And that's when he decides to save him, like with this little smoke cloud. And I have a lot of questions about that. Like, is there a soul inside of Capitano that's trying to escape? And like when Mavuika wounded him and made that open wound on his chest, that's when Auroran was like, oh, I sensed something trying to get out? Or was it something trying to get in?
That's what I kind of was wondering. Was something trying to get out and into him? Because it was like, ooh, I found a spot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also possible that, later on we find out more about Capitano and we find out his age and where he's from. And it's definitely possible that when you're cursed with eternity, your soul might be, harping to run away.
Yes, true. Yeah, we can get into the Capitano theories later again.
Just wanted to mention, though, too, that Auroran notes that Capitano knew he was following him the entire time and he did not care.
He was unbothered.
He kind of said something like, which when he said this, I was like, oh my God, you're talking like some of our favorite artifact sets. And I know that's not possible really anymore, but like, okay, Bloodstained Knight, like, holy shit. He was like, what is the point of a beast if it's not going to attack you? Like, some beasts are just meant to roam and some attack and you're just roaming. So why would I spend my time on you?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Viridescent Venerer, shit.
Well, and he tells him that he can sense a weight to his soul and a sense of justice.
Okay,
We
Fontaine.
actually had a theory in our Bloodstained Knight episode back in, I think it was season 2, that, the Bloodstained Knight was Capitano. And I do feel like, just like you were saying, Feeny, that this quest is sort of proving that wrong, because even if the Bloodstained Knight didn't actually die in Conria fighting monsters like the lore says that he did, that he also allegedly pledged himself to the abyss in the final moments. And we know that Capitano, in Natlan at least, is fighting the abyss.
Mhm.
So unless it's all like a really long con, he's probably not the Bloodstained Knight.
Which makes me sad.
It would be a gag if he was, and they were just throwing us off.
Yeah, I mean, or, is it possible you guys had said maybe a soul was trying to get in? Maybe a soul did get in, and it was the soul of the
Ooh.
Bloodstained Knight.
Ooh, I love that.
Just bringing a little
Come on,
weirdness.
Roland.
Yeah, Roland. Get rolling with your plan.
Rolling.
But where do we go from here?
We also find out via the memories that Capitano's plan is, instead of Mavuika's backup plan with the net to protect the ley lines, his plan is that he wants to reconstruct the ley lines. We find out via Auroran's memories that the captain wants to, instead of creating a net to protect the ley lines, he wants to reconstruct them. And that's all we're sort of told at this point.
Yeah, we snap out of it, and Lolly is like, that little jerk face. She gets pretty angry again. Scary. And we report back to Mavuika. At this point, we meet up with them and Zilonin, and we decide that we need to go figure out what's going on. They scout out the location of the Fatui, and we make our way over there, and we have a game plan that Kanish and some people from the canopies are going to attack the Fatui at the front door, while us, Zilonin, Mavuika, and some people from Echoes are going to dig a tunnel. Like, we're jailbreaking, but into a hole.
We're jailbreaking in.
Yeah, like, it was like, breaking into prison. So Kanish and his people, and if you're like me, you actually approached Kanish during his war and got yelled at by Paimon. Paimon was like, why are we talking to him? He's got this handled. We need to go do other things. And I was like, oh shit, sorry. Like, you told me I could talk to Kanish. Like, leave me alone. I want to talk to him. But we go and we dig a tunnel, and we have to go through all these like little side puzzles and things that are very clearly dragon side puzzles. And it feels like back in 5.0 when we are first entering like the Night Kingdom area, and we go into that cave that's like, the in-between of the Night Kingdom and Natlan.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, this is where the dragons are. And we're like, whoa! That's how I felt again.
Ruin, yeah.
And we do eventually like break in to see Capitano and Ororan like about to start this mechanism. And we're like, no, don't do it. And then the dog whistle happens.
Oh, the dog. That's what you meant by the dog whistle.
Because that's what it really is, a dog whistle. Like, it just like pierces everyone's heart. They're like, what is this ringing? But poor Auroran, like, the dog whistle fucked him up.
Uh-huh.
It was like, you have a fragment of a soul, I'm going to crack it even more. And then my favorite character of this entire quest shows up.
Oh, wow.
Guthred.
Wow, you're really digging into Guthred.
I have a lot of thoughts on this man.
Okay. You like spirits that possess others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So before we get into my things about Guthred, let's explain why Guthred is important here and who the fuck he is. So when the dog whistle goes off and this mechanism is created, it basically cracks Auroran's soul open. And it's so weak that it gives other souls the opportunity to jump on in. And so this soul of Guthred jumps in. And at first we don't know his name is Guthred, but immediately on the outside, Capitano realizes that something is wrong with Auroran and that he's not being himself and that he must be possessed. When we flip to the inside, we could see Guthred and Auroran kind of arguing with each other, and Guthred is basically telling him, like, your soul's worth nothing. You're a weakling. Just let me take over. Let me follow my commander. And on the outside, he does say that to Capitano as well. And Capitano is like, oh, I know who this is. It's like it's a soul that's been lingering around him for his whole life, it feels. And so we find out that Guthred is a Conrian soldier that served under Capitano but died. And he's been watching him from afar as a soul. And he's actually really upset with Capitano because he felt that Capitano should have done fucked up war tactics, not taking a note from Kokomi's book. The opposite. Taking honestly a note from the Fatui handbook, as of right now, or the Abyss handbook, right? And because of that, he thinks it costs not only the victory of the Conrians, but also his own life. He feels like that is Capitano's fault. And so he's trying to take over Auroran's body.
It's really good storytelling in a way because this is sort of putting Capitano in the same plight as Mavuika, because Capitano is like getting someone from his past saying, you could have done more to save everyone, but because you were so concerned with doing what's right, people suffered. And that's exactly what Capitano is accusing Mavuika of doing now.
And just some quick, fast facts about Guthred. So in real life, back in ye old Viking days, I'm gonna pronounce the second word wrong. Please, Viking lore people, love me anyway. Guthred Hardacknotson. He was the second Viking king of an area called Northumbria, aka Viking York. Do you know who the first king of Viking York was?
Ermin?
Nope.
Who?
Halfdan.
Oh, snap.
So Halfdan, if we go back, is the Conrian soldier that faces Dainsleif and actually helps us in the Chasm quest. So I'm very curious about Guthred and if he is related somehow to Halfdan. Obviously, they weren't kings. Like, we know that Ermin was in control. We know that the Albric took over. So we know that neither one of them were king necessarily, but I wonder if Halfdan served over him, or if it's possible that Halfdan also was under Capitano at some point. And does that mean that Capitano was at some point in the chasm? We do know, and I forget if we find out right after this or when we find out, but I think it's okay to drop it now. We do find this out a little later, but just to put in some context for everyone, we do find out that Capitano is a Conrian that has survived. Therefore, it seems that he has been cursed in the same way as Dainsleif. He has immortality. And we find out that when he emerged from Conria, he actually fought alongside the Natlanese of the time during the Cataclysm, and that he feels like he owes something to Natlan, and that's why he's really trying to fight and win. But we don't know where he went after that, and we don't know what he did really while he was a Conrian soldier pre-Cataclysm. And we don't know what led him to joining the Harbingers in the end either. And there's some more stuff we find out later that I'll leave for later because we love a fun lore drop. But there's a lot of unanswered questions here. And I think when you bring in Halfdan and Guthred, you have even more. Because they didn't have to name him either. They could have left him as an unnamed Conrian soldier.
Right.
Auroran won't give up to Guthred, though, and give up his soul. He's like, I'm going to fight this bitch and I'm going to keep it. Because he feels like he hasn't fulfilled his purpose. Because like you said earlier, we got Auroran's like, I didn't die for these people once. I need to, if I'm going to die, it has to be for sacrificing for my nation and stuff like that. He kind of says like, he wants to live. He wants to have this answer about his life. And with that, little ancient name appears in front of him.
And he has some like really great like flashbacks with people that matter to him. And like, you have Citlali, you have these other like grandparenty people who really loved and appreciate him. And he's realizing that he can offer more, that he isn't just a fractured soul and that he needs to persevere forward.
Yeah, they're like he's flashing back to like lessons that they taught him of like, do what you want with your life. And then he's like to Guthred, he's like, don't do what you want with my body. And he takes his body back.
Oh my God. I hate Brandon. No.
Don't do what you want with my body.
I hate it here.
I'm missing the reference.
That's a Lady Gaga / Christina Aguilera song.
Ah.
What you want with my body?
I didn't know it.
Anyway, Auroran takes back his body and, just like Tiff said, receives his ancient name. And then we find out the source of the dog whistle.
Dun dun dun! It's the Lord of the Night Kingdom.
I got the stuff that you want. The
Oh
things
my
that
God.
you need. I got more than enough to make you drop to your knees, 'cause I'm the Lord of the Night.
Oh my
Lord of
God.
the Night.
Is it karaoke night and no one told me?
I'm just trying to keep the energy up because this is a long slag of stuff.
And it's sad.
So the Lord of the Night, who wants to take a stab at pronouncing the name?
I thought you were going to do that.
Yohualtecuhtin. That's my best guess. Yohualtecuhtin.
Yo, if I tried to pronounce this phonetically, which is always my first go, which is why I fuck everything up, by just looking at the word, I would be Yohualtecuhtin.
Yeah, that's similar to what I said. Yeah.
Oh, yours sounded much more eloquent, in my opinion.
No, I don't think so.
Mine sounded like you were just like stabbing the piano keys.
When I was taking notes, though, I started abbreviating it to Yoal, and then that somehow turned into U-Haul in my head. So now I just imagine her as like a giant celestial angelic lesbian. So I just call her U-Haul.
I've been calling her Yo.
Yo, I like Yo.
I called her the Lord of the Night.
Yeah.
In every note.
Her actual name.
So it's like the Lord.
It is an Aztecian name, though, which was kind of neat.
Yeah, I
So.
appreciate that. We're just bad at pronouncing things here.
Yeah.
They know.
And they didn't even do it. They were like, fuck this, we ain't gonna say it. We're just gonna put it up on the screen.
Yeah, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
Nobody said it.
She doesn't introduce her actual name. Yeah.
you all shall suffer.
Mavuika's like, oh, I know this bitch. This is the Lord of the Night.
And there's a lot that comes out. First off, she's like, thank you for surviving my night whistle. It also woke me up.
My whistle.
And we're like, wow, I guess we won't have to go into a dreamscape to talk to her anymore.
Yeah.
Great.
But she's fine. She's happy to be awake. She's not like Roshnu the Pari. She's like, hello, I have energy again. What do you need? How can I help you?
Thank you for the G Fuel.
Yeah.
Capitano's like, but wait, why did this wake you up and not actually like do what we wanted and repair the ley lines?
And she's like, because you dum-dum, only I can do that.
Pretty much. She's like, oh, you thought you were smart.
You thought you had the power of the Lord of the Night. You don't. You rotting flesh sack. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, Mavuika tells us that when the Descender and the dragons fought, the ley lines were damaged, which I think we already kind of knew. And that the Lord of the Night used the fragments of the old ley lines to reconstruct another network called the Night Kingdom.
Mhm.
So she was in there like weaving a lot of stuff.
Yeah, she's like, the corner of the world was destroyed. Like, first of all, the world has a corner. Is this a flat
A flat earther. Flat earther alert.
Or is the world that the continent of Teyvat is on, is it just a big square, like a big cube, I should say, like a hypostasis?
I will say that even those of us who do believe in round earth say corner of the world. But in modern, like, that's a phrase.
Sure.
Like in our corner of the world, you know? So it's like, is it a play on words or does it mean more? It's one of those fucking Hoyo things that they do.
Well, it's like they say the corner of the world was destroyed. That's what made me think of it. But maybe that's just like a weird bad translation thing.
The only corner?
Well, no, I just mean like the corner of the world. It's like instead of our corner of the world,
That's true.
a corner of the world, it was like the corner of the world.
Possible localization? I don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Or something more. Because you never know with Hoyo.
I also like to think that the localization crew is sitting there going, oh, we just opened up a can of worms and just because we used the instead of our.
I know.
Damn it.
I'm sure it just sort of meant like the Natlan region was destroyed. Yeah.
But also, she didn't create the Night Kingdom alone. She had the help of Renova.
Well, yeah. Like I guess she created the Night Kingdom, she tells us, but then we find out that she did that under the guidance of Renova.
Who is a shade of the primordial one, assumedly. Presumingly. Like,
she definitely is.
She's the ruler of death.
Yeah, the ruler of death. Yep.
I thought it was me. It's her. And now we have just throwing out there that we know 3 of the shades officially.
Yeah.
Last episode, we talked a lot about the ruler of life.
Who created Egeria.
Yeah, and we know a lot about Istaroth, our time god, Venti's BFF in arms, and Kanomiya's half-savior.
Yeah, half-savior.
Also the person who helped create the sacred Sakura tree in Inazuma, rumored at least. A lot of supposedlys here.
So we have time, life, and death. Who is the 4th shade?
Yeah, there's a lot of theories out there. Like when I was reading up on the shades and stuff for this episode, some people think that the primordial one thinks that the heavenly principles might actually be a shade. And other people assume that, every artifact has a different type to it. So you have a life, a death, a timepiece. So a lot of people think that it's gonna relate back somehow to the other artifact that's left. And I don't remember what that is. But you have the flower of life, the plume of death. You have the sands of Eon, which I'm assuming is time.
Yeah. I feel like we talked about this before because there's 5 artifacts.
Yeah.
So we were saying the primordial one could be one of them and the other 4 being the shades. Am I remembering that correctly?
There's more shades that we don't know of.
I just imagine somebody walking around with a fucking lampshade on their head. Every single time they say shade, I see a white lampshade. I can't help it.
So just to also clarify, Yuhal says that she used the fragments of the old ley lines that were destroyed to construct a similar network, and that the first Pyro Archon Xbalanque strengthened the Night Realm, which she created, and that Xbalanque helped to establish the rules that are in place to fight the Abyss, and that includes things like the Ode of Resurrection and the Pilgrimage. So we know that this angel, Yuhal, she created the Night Kingdom, which is serving as the reconstructed ley lines of what was there before. She pieced the destroyed ley lines together, creates this Night Kingdom. Then you have the first Pyro Archon, Xbalanque. They strengthen the realm by establishing the rules, quote unquote, to help fight the Abyss. And then we find out that, she's an angel, of course, and that Seelies are the devolved form of angels.
So everything gets confirmed in that moment, basically, that we thought we knew about Seelies.
Yeah, we knew Seelies were the divine envoys, and we have seen images of them with wings where they look like angels. I can't remember if we said it in an episode that, they look like angels.
We talked about it briefly when talking about Chenyu Vale, which we brought up very briefly. And I know while we didn't know they were the envoys yet, when we talked about the fontas of Dragonspine and the paintings in...
The fontas.
Is that what they are? They not
the fresco.
The it's just a different brand.
Fontas and frescoes.
Fontas in Fontaine. When we talked about the frescoes of Dragonspine or the paintings of Surumi Island over with Rue, we definitely brought up these angelic giant creatures that really do wrap in with Chenyu Vale's art. And the art in Chenyu Vale is the first time we really think angels. That's the first time that word is really popped into our head, and the envoys, of course, too, especially when you do the Funjin Bluey story quest out there. We have a device and all sorts of fun shit. But yeah, we find out all this crazy shit, and we find out about angels, and we also see Seelies surrounding her, and she tells us that Seelies aren't really around in Natlan because they have given so much already. Like, they have no more to give, and so the ones left kind of surround her.
That's why we don't have them above ground. We have those little weirdo little orby thingies.
The little oil spills.
The little oils, yes.
We still don't know why we have them, though. There's no and that's why the oil spills are there, because they're actually like a reflection of Seelie power or something. Like, it's just like, yeah, we're not going to bring them up.
They put themselves into the paintings, so they probably just have something to do with all the graffiti and stuff.
Yeah, and we know that she, wakes up and does the dog whistle because of the source mechanism that Capitano and Auroran had enabled, but that Traveler actually disables when all of the Auroran drama is happening. So she's like, oh, that woke me up. And she tells us that that source mechanism was actually created by the dragons, #dragon shit, and that they used it to try to imbue the original ley lines with power, but that it was ineffective because they lacked the skill to navigate the intricate structure of the ley lines.
Right.
And now she tells us that the structure of the ley lines has completely changed again. And that makes me think that the Luma Fate is already working its stuff? ?
Oh.
Absolutely. But despite the fact that when we ask her about the Luma Fate, she's like, that sounds cool. Never heard of it.
Yeah.
But she knows somehow that the structure of the ley lines has completely changed, maybe for the first time, but that back then the dragons could not navigate the structure of the ley lines. And now she's saying the structure of the ley lines is completely different again.
Now, could I just say, we talked about Nuvalet last week and how he was born into his human form. And they make a big deal about that. So we know that he was literally a dragon. Mm-hmm. So now picture a bunch of dragons with little wrenches looking at a ley line like, let me see if I can fix this. Like, pop up the hood. Like, what are we doing? Little T-Rex arms like,
Yeah, we find out that the dragon, I forget how much we found out in 5.0, but we do know that the dragon civilization, this might be from some world quests that we haven't covered yet, but we'll get to eventually, that the dragon civilization was actually really advanced technologically.
Yeah, we find that out in 5.1 and 5.0 and in the People of the Springs, minimally, in their little tribe quest.
So we know that they were pretty advanced in their technology, but I guess they weren't advanced enough because they created the source mechanism, but they still couldn't figure out how to navigate the structure of the ley lines. But either way, they created this mechanism that was powerful enough to wake up the Lord of the Night. Because I'm the Lord of the Night.
Oh my God.
And she tells us that if they would like her to, because they are all of her beautiful children, she can use the power of the source mechanism to help them rebuild the ley lines at the cost of her own existence. And then Mavuika is like, nope, not doing it, because she says that A, the rules of Natlan would disappear with Yohual. B, the legends and memories recorded in the Night Kingdom will disappear as well. And C, the people of Natlan will face memory loss, mental disorders, and cognitive issues.
Yay! Great side effects.
Wonderful. Love it. And Capitano's like, excuse me, but it's worth this price if it keeps everyone alive. He has seen his whole nation die. And Mavuika is like, hold up, bro. Let me remind you that if the Abyss invade and they invade the new ley lines that the Lord of the Night is going to rebuild for us, Natlan would be even more powerless, because at that point, we're also not going to have all of those rules that Xbalanque established when the Night Kingdom was created. Things like the Ode of Resurrection. So if we rebuild the ley lines and the Abyss just invades them again, messes them up again, we're going to be even more powerless than we were before, because we're not going to have these magical rules that were established when the Night Kingdom was created.
Dun, 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 dun.
And that's when Capitano sort of reluctantly agrees. He's like, I'm starting to like get into you. I'm kind of feeling this.
Yeah.
Everyone is like feeling awkward because there's a lot of sexual tension between Capitano and Mavuika. He agrees to hold off and try to let them get the most positive outcome by finding the one last hero that has not been awakened yet.
I would just like to point out that in our first Natlan episode, we were talking about how Capitano could potentially be Mavuika's dad. And now you're like, sexual tension. He's from Conria.
Facts. Things have changed.
Things are different now. It's fine.
I wonder actually if you go back and watch their interactions in 5.0, knowing that he can't possibly be her father, if that sexual tension's actually already there.
The whole theory was that they're trying so hard to make it seem like it couldn't be. You know what I mean? That like, but that would be such a twist if it was her dad.
Mm.
So now that we know that he's most likely not, it's kind of like, oh, is there something sexy happening? So another thing besides Mavuika talking about the shades and the ruler of death, namely, as well as not knowing what the Loom of Fate is, although she does say that the Loom of Fate, you know, from what we described to her, it sounds like it could be a new option against the Abyss, which might be a little seed that's being planted. But besides that, she also tells us something we didn't know about elemental energy and phlogiston. She says that phlogiston is Teyvat's primordial form of energy. The heavenly principles use phlogiston as a basis for the creation of elemental energy to develop a power to better counter the Abyss. Have you heard of the concepts of the light realm and the human realm? That explanation might take too long. That made me laugh because I thought of Feeny.
Yeah.
And then she says, light refracts into 7 different colors, which we collectively refer to as a rainbow. Elemental energy is a similar concept. It's essentially the modern counterpart of phlogiston.
Yes, we know phlogiston is now ancient.
So phlogiston has all elements baked in there, really.
Yeah, and we know that elemental energy and light energy is essentially the same thing. So this is all making sense. It's all coming together, which made me really happy because we had sort of pieced that together. And I'm like, thank you for confirming that the light energy, like the elemental energy is made of the light energy. Like they're literally saying we took the light energy, refracted it into 7 different elements, and those are the elements of the human realm of Teyvat.
It also, though, brings into question the title of this quest, which is the Rainbow Destined to Burn.
Yeah. Also, I have a fun little thing to throw in, which is that you know, when you're going to different realms and Teyvat and you get the loading screen, it has like a little tidbit for you to read. There's an entry on your loading screen for the concept of time.
Yeah.
And the beginning of that says, just as the elements of the world count 7, so do the days of the week. So I thought it was a fun thing to conceptualize that maybe the light energy was also involved in the construction of Teyvat's time system. Like it's not just being split into 7 elements, but also 7 days that somehow determines like how time is set up. And that also helps explain why time passes differently in Teyvat as opposed to the Abyss.
Yeah. If it's slowed down or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because just as a little reminder, though, and to make sure I have it correct, when Child fell into the Abyss, he thought he was there for months, but when he came out, it was only like a day, right?
It was 3 days.
Okay, but it wasn't the opposite. Like, it was longer in the Abyss.
Yeah, which makes you wonder if life in Teyvat has been slowed down, which would also be like, oh, no wonder no one's fucking aging in this game right now.
Yeah.
Explains Citlali and Farazan, right?
Right.
Who else are old bitches? It's just them two, right?
Me.
And Amanda.
I'm Amanda. I'm 7. I aged.
Why are you now 7?
I aged
Oh.
to the Teyvat number.
So, but there's only 4 shades, right? There's not 7 shades?
That we know of.
Yeah, that we know. 4 shades, 6 pygmies.
And what is it? And a
partridge
parchment
and a pear tree.
Wait, do we have 5 nations?
7 nations.
We have 13 regions under Teyvat, indivisible. You include Dragon
8
Spawn.
nations, 7 elements, 6 pygmies. We're gonna figure this out for Christmas, y'all. 5
animal characters. I also have a really terrible news for everyone.
Uh-oh.
We are finding out a lot about our ancient name, and I just want to let you guys know that we do not receive the ancient name of Amanda at this point.
It's very upsetting.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys. I was hoping, but it hasn't happened.
It's gonna happen, I believe.
It will.
Imagine you get to pick your own ancient name. Amanda.
And all of a sudden Hoya was like, why are there like 60 people who have Amanda as their...
Yeah, they start Googling like lore on Amanda, and they're like, we can only find out about this Amanda Bynes and Amanda Seyfried. Should we be doing a Mamma Mia themed event? Like, do we learn anything else from the ruler of the Night Lord?
No, the only other thing we learn is that she refers to Citlali as a young girl, and Paimon's like, young girl, and she's like, what, did I say something wrong? So that was like a funny moment.
It's also funny because like the ruler of the Night Kingdom is like what, 500 years old, if not older. So it like, even if Citlali is like an 80-year-old granny, it's still kind of funny.
Yeah.
But at this point, Capitano and Mavuika like pinky promise that we're gonna do Mavuika's plan first, and if the captain feels that it's not working, he gets to do his plan, and he says that we can use the Fatui on our side. His lackeys are gonna work with us, and we go back to the speaker's chambers. Now, back in the speaker's chambers, we get a chance to talk to Capitano. And that is where we find out what I said earlier about him and how he's 500 years old. But this is where he also tells us that he's rotting from the inside. Because someone says it. They're like, shouldn't you and Mavuika recognize each other then?
So he actually tells us a story that, he's 500 years old, he's Conrian, and that he fled Conria and fled to Natlan and then discovered, it's under siege as well. He and his platoon were there. So they start helping in the fight with Natlan, and then he becomes good friends with the chief of the Masters of the Nightwind at the time, whose name is Ayizu. And so they fight together for a while, and they actually become really close friends. And then, Ayizu on his deathbed is sort of like the one who tells Capitano that Mavuika has like this option to use her gnosis to save the nation, which explains like how he knew about that. And then Mavuika is like hearing this, and she's like, oh, I remember Ayizu. He was like always harassing me to use my gnosis, and I wouldn't. And she's like, but I don't recognize you, Capitano. And I mean, I'm assuming it's because of your mask. And Capitano is like, well, you still wouldn't recognize me without the mask, because even with the curse of immortality, the flesh still rots.
I'm a zombie. That's what I got out of that. It's just the truth. I'm a truther. Not a flat earther. Not to be confused with a flat earther.
So yeah, apparently you don't want to see under there.
Damn, just when she thought she was gonna find like love after 500 years.
Yeah, and we bring up like, well, we know Dainsleif and he doesn't seem that rotten.
First off, not us name dropping too.
Yeah.
Like, so do you know the Twilight Sword? Because I know the Twilight Sword.
Like, he just has like a little like half mask on his face, and he seems hot still. And of course, Capitano's like, well, I don't know how he did that, but that's not, what's happening with me. The last time I saw him, he was traveling with your sibling. And he also sort of admits that when he first met us, he really tried to avoid fighting us because he knows that we're the sibling of the prince or princess.
Yeah, when he was like, the last time I saw Dainsleif, he was with the prince. I was like, oh, the prince. And then also, I kind of was like, are you outing us in front of other people, Capitano? Like, you just told people I'm royalty. You just doxed me.
It's such a reminder that our sibling is Conrian royalty.
Yeah. It's so crazy to think we're talking about these really old folks, and we just woke up like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And here our sibling has been around for at least 500 years.
He also tells us when we ask how he discovered the source mechanism, he said that his men were sort of scouting Natlan and that they found 3 scholars, Aberawa, Basamtue, and Kushtal, and that they combined the results of the research of those 3 scholars to figure out where it was. And what is very suspicious is that Mavuika is like, I've never heard of those 3 people. I'm not familiar with them at all.
And that was a major head turn.
Yeah, that's definitely going to come back later, I'm sure.
It also was like, what type of scholars are these? Are these Natlan scholars? Are these Sumerian scholars? Like,
they've got to be Natlanese because of their names, right?
And you never know.
Berewa, Basomtwe, and Kushtal. Like, I don't know.
I don't put anything past them.
When we talk about the people at like the Cube Institute, do we call them scholars over in Fontaine, or do we only use the word scholars in Sumeru?
I think it is used in other nations.
Okay.
Just not like institutionally, maybe.
Okay. It's not, so it's like the Millilith is everywhere.
No.
I just like the idea that there might be somebody who's like, oh, let me check out this podcast. And then like 3 times now they've heard me refer to the everybody as the Millilith. And they're like, I don't know.
You know the Millilith over in Sumeru? I mean, but for all we know, there is like a whole like a greater society of scholars that is an umbrella for all these different things across regions. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we also ask Capitano about like, oh, so what are you going to tell the Tsaritsa now that you don't have the Gnosis?
And more importantly, what are you going to tell Child? What are you going to tell him about me?
Yes, that's exactly what everyone's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I can name at least 5 trolls over in the Jade Chamber that are also asking that question. So
the captain tells us that the Tsaritsa allows all the harbingers to explore the meaning of their own existence, and when the time comes, that meaning can take precedence over her orders. And that's why the harbingers all have such different methods despite sharing the same goal and sovereign.
I hate to bring it back to Tartaglia.
No, I think it's warranted.
I just think it's so interesting because when we look at Child, especially like post Fontaine, we still have like this little lost boy on the inside. He went to Fontaine because he had a calling. And I know I say it all the time and I know I seem biased, but we know that he was fucked over by his boyfriend Zhongli and his co-worker Signora in Liyue. He goes to Inazuma looking for Scaramouche to not find him and instead befriend a bunch of kids in Yoimiya. We know that he misses his family, and we know that he goes to Fontaine with this longing. And when Capitano said, like, we're each allowed to, like, ponder and explore our existence and our meaning and, like, what our life is for, you really see Child on, like, a slippery slope doing that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I theorize that Child is going to defect against the Fatui Harbingers at some point, and specifically the Tsaritsa. I mean, they're doing a slippery slope for him to defect or for him to just go like, I have no existence, so what you need, girlfriend, to the Tsaritsa. Like, there's no in between for him, I feel.
Well, I loved this part because it really confirms like stuff that we've seen so much evidence of to begin with. Because I feel like if you think about it, Signora is kind of the only one who was just like, I'm after the Gnosis. I'm doing like what I need to do for the Tsaritsa, but everyone else that we've encountered is like worried about their own shit. Like Dottore is like, I'm interested in doing crazy experiments. I want to create a god. And Scaramouche is like, I want vengeance against everyone that wronged me, and I'm going to do whatever I want. Oh, I can become a god? Sure. I'm going to get vengeance on my mom. And, you know, Child is like doing whatever he wants. So it made so much sense because I feel like we've all been kind of like, why are the Harbingers like all over the place? And they seem so chaotic. If they're really doing the Tsaritsa's bidding, is she that chaotic? Like, what are like the layers of mission that all of these people are trying to pull off? But now we kind of know they have like the Tsaritsa mission, but they're allowed to do whatever they want outside of that.
It's almost like my mission is secondary as long as you figure your shit out.
He does tell us too, though, if he were to use the Gnosis and it survived, he would bring it over to the Tsaritsa afterwards.
Yeah.
He'd be like, lit.
Like he definitely tried to do that. And then he was like, well, I got beat in the battle, so now that's off the table and I'm going to do whatever, you know, what the main reason I came here for was.
God, Capitano.
Why is he Italian?
Yeah, what's his real name? We don't know.
Yeah, because we know that he's literally a captain.
It's Morgan.
No, I know. I was thinking the general too, like, you know, in the general insurance. He's like hanging out with Shaq. Anyway, we have all these like long combos, and again, Mavuika like reminds Capitano that she's still doing her thing, and he says that he didn't get the gnosis, as Brandon just mentioned, and he explains how he intended to use it. And Mavuika says, "Yeah, that's cool. I'm still doing my thing. You're not changing my opinion." And we're like, "All right, you know what? We're gonna go." And we head out, and we run into Kachina and Mualani. And they're trying to help people. And they tell us basically that shit is getting realer. We go back to bed. And while we are sleeping, we have a flash to something happening, which is Citlali and Zilonin going back to see the Lord of the Night and ask about making the ancient name of Amanda for us. We find out that those that craft an ancient name basically like have part of their life taken away from them.
Their whole life, right? Like they die, right?
Yeah, I mean, it said consuming the life. So I'm assuming it's like is it a one-shot consumption or is it a slow drain? I don't know. I feel like they wanted it to seem dramatic.
Well, they use the symbol of like a shell of like was it a pea pod or something, or I guess a seed shell, where it's like it harbors the seed until it's ready to bloom or whatever, but then the shell comes off of it and then it withers and fades out and dies. So it makes it seem like the death wouldn't be at the moment of the creation of the name, but that it would happen shortly thereafter.
Right.
That's how I took it.
Either way, it's kind of crazy.
It's insane, yeah. And Shilona's like, that's fine. I'll die. Small price to pay.
I also thought that like she was making ancient names before. Like I missed that part. I was like, well, what are you crafting then, bitch? Like that's her job, is she crafts things. But then I was like, oh, I guess she's like the people we go and make swords with and stuff like that.
Oh, that's a good question, because I was assuming it meant that was the price to pay for forging an ancient name for an Outlander.
Oh.
Because I don't know how many ancient names are there. I mean, there can't be that many ancient names, right? Because there's only so many that can benefit from the Ode of Resurrection normally. So
yeah, and they're all kind of coming back from other ones.
Maybe they do sacrifice every time they create one. I don't know.
And maybe normally it's a slow and steady burn, but because the Traveler isn't from Natlan, it's like, this will just eat you, girl.
Yeah, I don't know. But I feel like she would have known before, right? She would have known that the price would be death.
Yeah, because she was a little calm about that. Like, she wasn't like, excuse me?
Both of them seem to be like, yeah, this is it.
Well, I'm saying there's an argument to be made that she didn't know that she would die, because otherwise, why wouldn't that have been established before, I guess? Because it seemed like she was learning it from the Lord of the Night. Unless you're saying that she already knew and that it was just for the audience to know.
I think that her and Citlali both assumed that was the case, and this was like a confirmation of rumors.
Okay.
And I also think that it doesn't matter regardless, because Zilonin's like, yeah, I'll die.
My Archon wants me to. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. It's crazy, honestly, how much these people are willing to die for Mavuika. And honestly, I appreciate it, but it makes me a little suspicious of her.
Oh, okay.
Like, what spell you got on these people that they're all like, I will die?
It's called unity and altruism.
I don't know. Listen, guys, if something happened, I'm not guaranteeing I would die for you.
Wow. Thanks a lot. I thought we were close, but I guess not.
Mm-hmm. Would you die for me?
Hell no.
Yeah, exactly. I knew the answer to that one.
Well, so Citlali tells us that she's going to use the traveler status, because like they start, I guess it's on the topic of death, that they start talking about the fact that, she wants to use the status of the traveler as a descender to stall Mavuika's death because she foresaw it.
Yeah, which is crazy. She's like, oh, by the way, I read Mavuika's future and she's going to die.
Yeah, and she's like, is there anything we can do? Because I'm feeling like the Traveler might be the pawn I needed this whole time.
Yeah, and Yohual's like, yeah, this is the price of using Renova's power, because we find out that the power of Renova, which is, again, the Shade of Death, that's the power that Mavuika is planning on using to channel the energy of the 6 activated warriors to stop the Abyss. Like, that is power that was granted to the first Pyro Archon Xbalanque by Renova. So she's channeling this power that originally comes from the Shade of Death, and the price of that is her death. So Citlali's like, I read her future. don't tell anyone because no one knows I did that, which is like, wow, Citlali scary. The Lord of the Night is like, yeah, she's going to die, but that is a rule, quote unquote, that was established by the Shade of Death. Remember, the ruler of death creates rules, but that fate is something of the human realm, and that is different. And that is potentially something the traveler could change because they're not of the realm. So she implies that even though Mavuika using that power will kill her, there's a chance that we could change the fate of her death to happen much later, meaning she wouldn't necessarily die right away. Did y'all understand that the same way? Because it was a little...
Yeah. That's kind of how I interpreted it as well, was, yeah, she's still gotta die, but we can just make it as if she's dying like a regular person.
Make it later.
My thing with it was I almost saw this rule as a curse. And so, like, in my head, I changed the word rule to curse.
That makes sense.
And we were having like a side conversation about this earlier in the week. And I was like, yeah, the curse. And Brandon was like, you mean the rule? And I was like, no, the curse. This is a curse. Like, I know I've been obsessed with curses ever since the poetry event. But even Mavuika brings up that, like, the archons and the gods, they can curse humans to help them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or quote unquote help them. And if you're Diona, it's a true curse, right? So I felt like this was like her getting cursed by like an OG god almost. And being told like, and the same thing with a curse, right? Like, how long can Shang Yun outrun his fate, right? And that's what I feel like this is too.
Do you think that the curse on Conria, where like some of them become immortal, some of them become hilly churls, etc., would that have been from the unknown shade? That was like a rule that they established for Conria?
Oh, definitely possible. I mean, it's even possible that Renova made these rules. I mean, Renova is the ruler of death, right? Wouldn't that mean that she can control if someone's going to die or not?
Maybe.
Or even the ruler of life.
What's turning them into monsters?
The life, I was thinking.
What, like, who is... I'm just trying to think of what the last shade could be.
Yeah, I mean, like a magical one. Maybe it is Alice, you know, the alchemy. Or gold, I guess, is more alchemy. But they say Alice knows alchemy.
Maybe it's like a shade of transformation or something.
Ooh, that would be fun. Or, you know, maybe we have to go back to our witches in Simulanka. Fate is a possibility, you know, something like that.
Yeah, it could be fate. Fate, time, life, and death.
But anyway, you know, they have their conversation. They're kind of like, meh, meh, meh. And then the Lord of the Night gives them this like piece of paper thing. It's really pretty. And they're like, just give this to the traveler and have them record everything they do here so that they, you know, they're a hero here too. And we can get their shit together. It's like homework.
Yeah. Here's a piece of parchment.
Meanwhile, the traveler and Paimon wake up. And we're like, ooh, yeah, well rested. And for once.
Well, thank God.
Thank God we did not use the pillow. We would not have been well rested if our head had slept on that pillow. And we run into these two sneakaroos who were over talking to the Night Lord without us, Citlali and Zilonen. And they're like, here, take this, hold on to it.
This is the Pilgrim's Chronicle. It's going to record all of your deeds.
Yes.
And it's crazy because Shilonen is giving this to them, and it's sort of also like her death sentence in a way. It's like, here, help me with this tool that's going to help me kill myself.
That was dark.
It's the truth, though. And at this point, we're talking with them, and we really don't get to ask any more questions because we find out via little Kachina that the Abyss is attacking. Dun, dun, dun.
The war is starting.
Yeah, we run outside and we're like, oh shit, what's going on? And we basically get this idea that because Auroran, you know, found his truth, the Abyss was like, oh shit, we got all these heroes back. We got most of these heroes back, I should say. We gotta fight.
Yeah.
And this is when Mavuika is like, all right, Kakomi's playbook coming in full speed right now. We gotta go. And this is when we're gifted the stupidest fuking device in the entire game.
Here's a hot air balloon.
We're in such a hurry. Bring in some balloons.
Like, I just hated these balloons. I I was so mad because I was like, oh, this is like a game. Like I have like point system that I have to follow, right? Why can't I get off the fucking balloon? Like they'd be like, look at those people suffering, but you're stuck on the balloon. Like, come on. It was so frustrating and it was so slow. You'd be a good 10 seconds from being able to exit the balloon and Paimon be like, hurry, we have to go. And I'd be like, Paimon, I'm trying. And the worst part was you couldn't even attack from the air balloon. So like I
Right.
was trying to use Tinyari and it was just like flying back at me.
How'd you feel about the balloon, though? I'm not really sure.
I hated it. It wasn't even like a cute balloon. Like they could have given me one that was like traveler themed, and they didn't.
You don't get clothes that are themed. Do you think you're going to get a hot air balloon that's themed?
It's what I deserve.
How are they aiming the balloons is what I want to know. Like, how could you get the balloon to go somewhere that specific? I thought they just kind of floated.
We whispered in its ear and asked kindly.
Like, was someone using anima? Was Chaska like controlling the balloon paths?
Chaska was becoming depressed.
I don't know a lot about the physics of hot air balloons, but I believe you can, quote unquote, drive them.
And you can make them go up and down.
They were used as ways to get around. So it's kind of like a sailboat, I guess. I must have like a rudder and then you still use the wind.
I've heard horrifying stories, by the way, of like when people go up in hot air balloons, how crazy it is to land them, where it's like really rough and like people fall out of them. It's like, oh, this is so romantic and relaxing. And then you have to land and it's like, it's really rough and like crazy to land a hot air balloon. Just a fun fact.
Look at the Wizard of Oz. Didn't go well.
Anyway.
So we fight. We get off the balloon at some point and we start fighting and we're fighting everybody. And then what I thought was the saddest thing that I was going to see happened, which was a bunch of dead Saurians. And I was like, no, look at all the dead Saurians.
This part, there's not a whole lot to explain. We're doing attack after attack, like little mini battle after mini battle, trying to save all these people. But then we keep showing up after they've already been slaughtered. And our morale keeps dropping. It keeps getting more and more overwhelming.
Yeah, we're not winning the game.
Yeah. I seriously was like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst thing ever seeing the Saurians. And then all of a sudden it was like, there's dead people.
Yeah.
I see dead people, Mom.
Saw a lot of dead people.
Yeah. And it's like you think that something is going to change at the next destination and it just gets worse. And they really, I thought they did a great job of creating dread and that sort of horror of like, oh my God, this is like, we're losing.
We're losing the battle. Yeah, we are losing this war.
And then suddenly the Eye of Sauron appears above the stadium, which I think they referred to it at one point as the heart of the abyss, I think. And it spawns like all these portals nearby the stadium and all these monsters are spilling out of it. And so there's like this big battle that's happening. And then Mavuika somehow uses her gnosis to like get rid of the eye above the stadium. But then it's, I don't know if it moves or if there's a different one, but then isn't it suddenly like northeast of the stadium?
Yeah, there's a lot of like movement with it. And also, like, as it's dropping these giant pillars, like, there's more fighting going on.
But I just thought it, because, like, it doesn't it channels, like, it first appears right above the stadium, right? Because it sort of shoots out of, like, where the sacred flame thing is, like, the tube is. And then Mavuika uses her gnosis to, like, I guess, cleanse that flame. And then it shoots up into the eye, and the eye sort of shrinks and disappears. But then moments later, we see it over to the right in the sky.
I feel like it just shot up and moved. I don't think she did anything to it at that point.
So you think, okay, it just moved.
I think it just like moved over. Yeah.
I was confused. I was like, did she destroy that one and there's a second one, or did it move?
Although she does have her gnosis out and she does use a power, but it looks like it's more so dispelling the abyssal corruption from the stadium, which might have also caused it to move.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a little confusing, but it's still there, it's still in the sky, the Eye of Sauron.
And when the eye goes up, we're with Kanish. And Kanish is like, I gotta go, guys. Like, I gotta go check this out. and he runs away. And we go on to like the next like seedling that has popped out from this eye. And we help cleanse it or whatever. And then I don't know if you guys noticed, but do you remember Toto?
The Dorothy's dog?
No, I thought his name was Toto. I could be wrong.
I know, I believe you're right.
Yeah, the giant like giraffe-like saurian that Kachina like rides with us at one point. He's like laying on the floor and it looks like he's dead.
He's dead.
Oh no.
No, he's
No,
very
he's
dead.
alive. He's alive.
He's alive?
I talked to the lady there. He was very much alive and he was gonna be okay.
Oh, thank
Did
God.
she just tell you that though? Just
No. Toto talked to me.
okay.
But he also made a noise. Paimon was like, "You gotta be more careful." And he was like, "Meh."
Speaking of Paimon, she starts losing her shit. We're like, okay, we should go back to the stadium and stuff. So we get up in our hot air balloon and she is like, I can't do this. Like, this is too much.
Yeah.
And I was like, same girl. I can't.
Amazing acting from Karina.
Yeah, it was like the way that it was just so powerful, and I just really, you could feel it. Like, even with Traveler not speaking, you're just like, oh my God, this is just so much that's going on. And just seeing as you're going in the hot air balloon and you're just seeing all these monsters and everything like that. And it's so powerful.
So then comes the next saddest part.
Yeah, just as you thought it was sad enough, here's some more.
They're just piling it on.
Yep.
You show up to see Chaska and Koichi, and Koichi is laying on the ground, and we're like, we can't tell if she's dead or not. And we run up and we're able to help like remove the abyssal corruption from her soul. We literally have not used this power since Mondstadt. We've used it a lot here. And we basically find out that we are too late. And Chaska's sister says some beautiful things to Chaska, but she dies. And Chaska goes into an abyssal corruption rage, but composes herself.
And I was like, I knew it.
Yeah, but also I have like a lot of questions about that because like I don't want to get too much into it, but like my questions kind of were around like, can we heal Chaska? Like, can we like get rid of some of this corruption so it's not as bad? Like what is going on here? Like so many people have been exposed to the abyss, like.
Yeah, I forgot to say, like, earlier when I was talking about how I had a feeling Koichi was going to die, the other part of why I thought that was because they had established this whole storyline with Chaska being sort of unable to control her anger or something, that there was like something that's like sort of uncontrollable, and that if she gets too emotional, she could explode. Like there were definitely like Dark Phoenix vibes happening with her from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that was another reason why I was like, they're introducing this person who makes her vulnerable and makes her, it's like her Achilles heel, and they're going to use that as a plot device to activate her in some way.
I really thought you were going to say that Chaska was going to lose it and kill her sister.
Oh no. Mm-mm. I thought she would go evil though. I was like, they're going to kill her sister and then she's going to like go Dark Phoenix.
Which she starts to, but then she composes herself and she's like, I can't do this.
Yeah. And we give her space and then we come back and Chaska is then gifted her official powers as the final person needed for Mavuika's plan. And Chaska carries her dead sister's body back to the stadium. Everyone sees it. And now everyone's mourning and sad. And Chaska's like, guys, we got to just get to this.
Tiffany's crying.
Yeah, it was very emotional. And even Mavuika is like, fuck. Like you could just see it on her face.
Yeah.
And we go back to the stadium. And we have our 6th fully realized heroes. And it's a beautiful scene where each of them acknowledges their ancient name and then their ancient name holder like shows up behind them.
Yeah.
And we like suddenly become like, I don't know, like the Teen Titans. We are just out there kicking ass left and right.
Yeah. And Mavuika's like, I am Captain Planet.
So it reminded me a lot of Fei Zhao in Star Rail, and like there was this whole scene where like she was like, I have ultimate power. And we're like, oh shit, do you? And then she's like shooting these giant arrows, and Mose's like, yeah, she does this sometimes. It's really fucking chaotic. And that's like what Mavuika is basically doing. Because even at one point, Mualani's like, wow, that like fireball came really close to my head. And Mavuika's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll like rein it in. And Mualani's like, no, that was awesome. Like, keep going.
Yeah. The whole sequence is chaotic for sure.
But it's very also change of pace in the energy.
Oh yeah, it's like, and the music changes. It's suddenly triumphant, charge, attack music. You feel re-energized after being drained for so many of those balloon battles.
Yeah.
You mean just from sitting on the fucking balloon?
Yeah, and then showing up and everyone's dead, and you're like, oh my God, you like fight three things, and you're like, well, I saved like maybe one person.
I'm like, if only you had let me off with the balloon. Like, I might have actually saved a life.
The best is they're like on like a Zoom call. They're like all connected to each other, talking.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They have earpieces all of a sudden. Like, yeah, they're like communicating.
It's so interesting because she's using, I guess, the power of the Pyro throne, but also the power of that was given to Xbalanque, which we know part of that at least comes from the Shade of Death. And so she's using the Ode of Resurrection to keep everyone alive. So like everyone's basically invincible. And like Tiff said, we're on a Skype call or a Zoom call, and we can just chit chat. It's a little wild. And we're like going around and fighting these abyss tumors. And I don't know if y'all noticed the name of the abyss tumors. Did you notice it? Because I'm about to blow Amanda's mind.
Oh no, it's gonna be like Albedo's second brother,
No,
twice removed.
No, it's way more obscure. So the abyss tumors, which are like these things that are being sort of shot down by the Eye of Sauron. In parentheses, they're called the marks of Gosoitoth. And I was Googling it earlier, and someone on Reddit pointed out that this is an anagram of Yog-Sothoth, the H.P. Lovecraft god that you brought up in an episode before. Do you remember this?
Shut up! Stop! Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I brought up Yog. That's
You
why
didn't? Oh, I thought it was Yog. I'm sorry.
It was Lovecraft in general, though, I think, like about the monsters. It was Cthulhu, right?
No, I didn't bring up Cthulhu either.
No, it wasn't Cthulhu. It was I forget the name of it.
I was talking about Azathoth.
Oh, Azathoth.
Ah, yes.
Azathoth. Okay.
And they're like, I think they're like kid who like, because they were like the second who came. Ooh, but yeah, Yog-Sothoth is an outer god from the pantheon. He's one of the most powerful outer gods, if not equal to Azathoth.
So it just feels very confirmed in a way that they're sort of treating the abyss as like Lovecraftian, like crazy Lovecraftian monsters.
But it like makes sense because, I first brought up H.P. Lovecraft last season when we were talking about the Melazines specifically, because the witchy Melazine tells us that like we're something with sleeping. When they wake, they could swallow the world whole.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of was bringing in Azathoth, because I believe it's Azathoth who's like asleep at the center of the world. And when they wake up, like the world is going to end. And they're like very important. So it's almost made me feel like maybe we're asleep and this is all a dream universe. And I go back to my Kingdom Hearts, someone's implanting our memories idea. And Venti saying that we've met so many times before. Well, if this is a dream world and we are Azathoth and we are the time god or the shade of time possibly, it's sleeping. And that when we wake up, the world is going to end, because maybe the world isn't going to end, but the world as we know it is going to end because we're going to change shit. And everything's from an egg.
Not the yo.
Yes, everything's from the yo.
Anyway, I just freaked out when I noticed that. I was like, oh my God, it really is Lovecraftian.
You guys think that I'm on crack sometimes. I know.
Well, I mean, you are, but
no, I'm not.
Sometimes you're right.
I'm crack free.
Porque no lo estoy.
The only Coke I got is Diet Coke, and I prefer Pepsi.
That's Diet Coke just makes me crazy.
It just makes me go wild. Oh my God, this is totally random. When I was a kid, I used to think that goldfish made me go crazy. And so anytime I eat like goldfish crackers, I'd be like, ooh.
Not as good as Cheez-Its, but still
I
great.
do love a cheddar jack Cheez-It.
Oh, I love an original.
Oh, I like original, but the cheddar jack just like hit.
There is no Cheez-It I don't love, to be honest.
There's no cheese you don't love.
That's very true.
The extra crispy cheddar jack sucks.
Oh, really? Oh, you don't like that? Okay.
Yeah, I like the regular cheddar jack. I like the regular crispy.
What about the slightly
them
burnt?
together. Well, that's this. I like slightly burnt.
Bring it back to Natlan.
Yeah. So Kanish gets another call on our Zoom call, and he's like, I sense some problems back at the stadium.
Or is this after a howl is like being annoying, and Paimon's like, "Can you mute a howl?" And Mavuika's like, "Done."
Yeah. So this came out, and who knows if later on they will add it in, but there are some voice acting that's missing because I think mainly all because of the strike.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So a how is not voiced in the English version.
Yeah.
So Paimon's telling him to shut up and can you mute him? And he really is. He's really muted.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I was just like, oh, irony.
But we go back to the stadium and we find out that the sacred flame's being put out. And we're like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? So we start fighting monsters and we're like kicking ass, but we're also like getting our asses a little handed to us because like, come on, we're exhausted at this point. We don't have an ancient hero on our side.
I know. How long have we been up for at this point? Like days?
At least 5 days. I don't know.
Oh
People
God.
keep offering us snacks. They're like, you look like you need rest. And Travelers, honestly, like, no, I like live it off of adrenaline. Like, we gotta do this. And this is when Mavuika is able to unleash a power that destroys the abyss hole. The little butthole in the sky goes away.
But not only does the butthole go away, but it briefly breaks the fake sky. And we see all the cubies like we saw on the very first time in the cutscene that brought us into the game with the heavenly principles. And we see a broken moon.
Or a broken egg.
Whatever it is, yeah. Shattered pieces of something.
And then it goes and closes back up, but nobody
What was that?
it.
How did it go? The official sound that it makes, yes. Famously.
Which, after you finish this, you can still see it. It's not very clear and it's very muted, but you can still see it in the sky.
Yeah, it's like more translucent.
Yeah, almost like a little reminder to us that, hey, this happened.
So I have so many thoughts and theories about this.
But before we get into thoughts and theories, we gotta finish the story. So we all clap, we all cheer. I also found this very emotional because we see a lot of the NPCs that like we've been helping out, cheering and being happy.
The Eye of Sauron has fallen, aka exploded.
And Xilonen actually is the one who's like, y'all, this is great that we won and stuff, but I really think we need to have a moment of silence for everyone that we've lost. And it's another moment where you're like, God fucking damn it, Xilonen. Like, shit, like I was just over this.
I know.
And then Mavuika's like fist bumping Capitano, like, thanks for the help, man. Thanks for giving us the Fatui. And I have one of my favorite Paimon quotes from this, where they're like, yeah, like a lot of the people were saying that like it was weird fighting along your people or whatever. And he's like, oh, I wouldn't understand why. And Paimon is like, well, you know, like normally they're like trying to kill us and all. Like basically like, yeah, what do you think, bro? But we celebrate a little bit and then
Kanish offers a how grapes.
oh my God. And he's like such a little like, first off, a how is like, what am I, a parrot?
Yeah. And then later there's a callback where Kanish calls him Polly, and it made me laugh so much.
Yeah, because he's like, can I have more grapes? He's like, whatever you want, Polly. I was like, yes, this is amazing. Favorite characters, guys, right there. Like, we have to take a rest, and every time we like have to take a rest during this like the last like hour of the game, it's so weird. Like we had to sit on a bench in the middle of like the like fucking abyss war, and I couldn't find the bench for so long. I was like, I thought I was looking for like a bed with the fake pillows.
Oh, I remember. I had a hard time finding it too. I was like, what am I looking?
Yeah, I was like,
for?
where am I going?
Yeah. I'm like, is there someone to kill over here?
Yeah, I was like, what is it pointing me to? A bench?
Wait,
Is this a
rest?
fake bench?
What do you mean rest?
Yeah, like I got things
We're
to
revealing
do.
Yeah.
so much about our personalities right now, Amanda.
I just was like, I literally have things to do. I like no, like
Yeah.
ugh. But we go back to the speaker's chambers at this point. As we're walking over there, Citlali's like, hey, come here. And she says to us, I just need you guys to know that even though we won, Mavuika's still gonna die. And we're like, wow, thanks for fucking killing the mood.
Mhm.
Like, we were all happy for 5 seconds, Citlali. Like, I get it. You're an all-seeing granny, but you could have kept it to yourself for like another 24 hours. You're not even keeping it to yourself because Gilonen knows.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then we get this really beautiful scene with Mavuika back in her, like, I'm going to call it her realm of conscious, you know, like almost like her plane of euthymia.
Mhm. Or like that, maybe it's like a Night Kingdom thing because like they pass down all of these memories from not just themselves, but from like their families and everything. If that makes sense, like their whole tribe shares memories to a degree.
Yeah.
And my favorite memory that she sees this time around is the guy who like used to wrestle with her and they used to like have fun and fight. And then he's like, you're not gonna become an Archon. And he's like, oh shit, you're gonna be the Archon?
Yeah.
He's like, guess we're not gonna be able to wrestle. And she's like, oh, you're gonna be afraid of my power? He's like, no, you're just not gonna have time.
Mhm.
And it was really a beautiful moment as per usual with her.
But when she tells us when we meet up with her that she would like us to join her for the final
Yeah.
battle, where she's
Mhm.
going down into the very bottom depths of the Night Kingdom where the abyssal energy is very strong. No one else can follow her down there but us because there's so much abyssal energy, it's instantly lethal to a regular human. But she knows that we can withstand it, but she also wants us to have our ancient name because we determine that it can be used to bring us back to life if we die, just in case.
Is that a
But
hint?
we still don't know that it's going to kill Shilonen, though, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah, I don't think we ever know that part, but we know that. And then she says like Paimon can't come with us because outside of the
Yeah.
fact that Paimon would die, she would also be a target because the Abyss would know that Traveler would have to protect Paimon.
Yeah, she's like our weak link. She's our vulnerability.
And Paimon's like, you're gonna leave me all alone? I'm like, I'm sorry. I was
Yeah.
having like Sumeru flashbacks.
Doesn't that make you think that we're going to get down there and then someone on the surface is going to try to attack Paimon and get us to like run back after her?
Well, do you think that it's possible that it could be Capitano? Because
Ooh.
after we have this conversation with Mavuika and it flashes to Capitano visiting ye old Lord of the Night, and he is like talking to her, but he's like, yeah, I know like she used the power of the Shade of Death, and I know that means she's gotta die now. Like, and the Lord of the Night is like, how the fuck do you know all this? And that's when Capitano says that he still has to fight someone and that he's asking the Lord of the Night for help with it.
Yeah, so he says that the power that the Pyro Archon used to strike back at the Abyss came from the ruler of death. From what I know of her rules, she will demand death in return. And Yuhal says, how do you know of this? And then we don't hear the response. And then Yuhal says, I see. So the ruler of death sent you on your long journey.
Yeah.
And then Capitano says, Natlan still has a final battle to fight, and I too have a final foe to face. For the sake of those countless lost souls and a hope for Natlan's future, I need your help. So why did the ruler of death send him on his long journey? Who is his final foe to face?
Mhm.
Maybe it's our twin.
I have theories.
I thought maybe he was going to try and take Mavuika's place.
Oh my god, that'd be so funny. A zombie takes over Natlan.
No, I meant like her place so she doesn't have to die.
That
Like,
was
Oh.
my prevailing theory I mean, it seems like a setup, right? It seems obvious in terms of like storytelling technique.
obvious enough that it's probably not true.
Maybe, yeah, because like it very much seems like, now that he and Mavuika are friends, we know they both want to protect Natlan. It seems obvious that like he's going to be the one that dies instead of Mavuika. But some other fun things to consider. What if maybe the foe he has to fight is Renova and he wants to become the new Shade of Death?
That would be interesting.
Or maybe Renova's soul is inside his body. And that's why Auroran is like, I feel a soul trying to escape.
Oh my god, the Shade of Death is like, let me out.
Yeah.
Because, it's saying that like Renova sent him on his long journey. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, there's something about his fleeing of Conria and fighting with the Natlanese people. There's got to be something.
Renova got involved at some point.
We still don't really even know at that point, too. So knowing that he left Conria and he went to Natlan, well, then when did he go to Shesnaya to become a Fatui? Well, maybe I guess you don't need to actually go to Shesnaya to start.
What if Renova is the third descender?
Well, possible, but just to say back to the whole Capitano with Shesnaya, we know that Pyro was a Conrian and that he created the Harbingers. And we know that a lot of Harbingers became a thing around this time. We know at least 3 of them. We know Signora, Pyro, and Capitano all formed the Harbingers pretty quickly. I mean, I don't even think Signora's number 3. So whoever came between her two, we know that she was found wandering around ready to like burn everything alive after her lover died during the cataclysm. So the assumption would be that Pyro, Capitano, Signora, and maybe another 1 or 2 found each other. And it's possible that the Harbingers were a thing before the Tsaritsa kind of accepted them in.
I don't know about that because I forget which artifact series it is, but one of them is sort of told from the viewpoint of Pyro, I want to say. It's like him recruiting the different Fatui members. And I want to say that I forget which ones, but I know that some of the early ones, including Signora, the way that the language is used, where he's like trying to convince them, he's already talking about, like, he basically uses the Tsaritsa's mission or goal as like how to get them to join.
Interesting.
So he's like already working for her when he's like recruiting.
Well, I wonder if he met the Tsaritsa during the cataclysm. Which then begs the question of who is the Tsaritsa, and is it possible that the Tsaritsa is one of the shades?
Or is she Conrian?
Yeah, or is she Conrian? But we don't, well, I don't think the Tsaritsa can be Conrian because we know that, or we've assumed at least that, I'm not going to say we know because I don't have this research in front of me, but from what I remember, we said that the Tsaritsa lost something they loved during the cataclysm and then turned to the way they are.
That is such a good theory. So are you saying your theory is that Renova is the Tsaritsa?
Yeah.
Because I'm signing up for that. I love that.
And lost something. I don't know what that loss is.
And that's why she says that the ruler of death sent you on your long journey, because it's literally
the Tsaritsa
his
sent
boss.
you on your journey.
Oh, shit.
And that would make sense why the Tsaritsa would be cool with them looking into their existence, because she wants them to all know the path to their death.
Yes. I love it. It makes so much sense.
I got chills.
But there is one other thing I'd like to throw in there. It's the second qualm that I had with this quest. My first qualm was the fucking hot air balloon. My second qualm is going to sound very familiar. And it's the fact that Natlan was literally covered in abyss. There was a fucking portal in the sky. There was dark purple clouds everywhere. What happened, Zhongli, Venti, Nouvelette? Y'all didn't see this shit?
I mean, you saw how long it took to get from point A to point B on those balloons within Natlan. Imagine how long it would take to get all the way from Liyue to Natlan.
Oh, they're gods. They're archons.
Venti could have jumped onto Valen.
Venti could just go, I'm the wind. And just fly over.
I'm the wind, bitch.
Fucking Ningguang's up on the Jade Chamber. Like, bring your chamber over. Come on. Like, oh my god. Like,
That's a good point.
Anahita, I know it's your birthday, but there's some shit going on to the left. Like, can you look? And what about the people living in the desert? Like, what were they thinking? They're probably, this cloud, there's barely any water separating us in Natlan. Like,
should we rename this episode Natlan to the left?
To the left, to the left. All the abyss is to the left. But like, there's just this little like canal of water that separates Natlan from the desert of Sumeru, and like all these Eremites are probably like, "Oh my god, like it's right there! Like, what if it crosses the canal?" Like that wasn't intense. Like fucking, there's an Eremite running up to Nihida. She's eating like a slice of birthday cake, and he's like, "My lord, what the fuck?"
Do you think they thought it was like a sign of a Posha? Because that was a pretty big thing in the sky too.
Well, no one cared about that either. So
Yeah.
Well, maybe this was happening at the same time as Nahida's birthday.
listen, I love Nihida. I'm all for her birthday, but bro,
Sarush was elsewhere.
Sarush was taking care of business. But it's like I can see like the Sumeru tree from Natlan, and not from far.
You can see
know?
the pyramid too.
Yeah, so it's like I can see your shit. I know you can see mine. Where were you guys? I could see Celestia. Like, come on, guys. Like,
I do think it's a really good point, and I hope that they explain it away somehow. Like, it would be nice if we find out later that like they sent the first line of like help over, and that like by the time they got there, like it was already over or something.
well, they better fucking check in with Mavuika. Like, I better see a fucking Millith over here. Like, being like, you good? Also, where's Zhao? Why didn't I call for Zhao? I could be like, Zhao, and he would have appeared and he would have helped.
Can he do that in other regions?
He could do it wherever my heart desires. That's what he told me.
Oh.
He said, you want me? I'll be there. Just say my name.
That was just for Amanda, though.
Yes, and maybe now that I'm 7, he's not going to do it anymore.
Can I quickly just go back to a couple Capitano theories real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Just about his identity. I thought it was really fun to think about who might be under there, even though it's probably no one we already know. But maybe he could be the commander Hadura from the Schwanenritter.
Ooh.
Now, Hadura was allegedly killed by Enfortus already.
That's Klingsor's family?
Yes. Klingsor is a descendant of his. But Hadura, he was like one of the big shots in the Schwanenritter, and he was allegedly killed by Enfortus for betrayal after sabotaging a machine, remember? So my theory is that like, what if his death was faked so that Enfortus didn't actually have to kill him? And this is coming from the mysterious chronicles that we find inside that big ruin golem that we explore.
Okay.
So there's 3 different Schwanenritters that it talks about. One is Hadura, who is the sentinel of the Golden Hall. And we know from other pieces of lore that Hadura was like actually a big hero and like rescued a bunch of people and fought a bunch of monsters. But for some reason at the end of the, the whole story, he sabotaged a machine. It was seen as betrayal. And so the Mysterious Chronicle says, executed by the Knight Marshal Enfortus for betrayal that caused irreversible damage to a machine, despite the major loss, and that the Knight Marshal's left eye was lost in this event. Given Hadura was the last of their compatriots, a proper knight's funeral was granted for Hadura. So if it were Hadura, and I just say that because we know that from somewhere else, Hadura is a commander, and we know that Capitano is referred to as commander by Guthred. What if Enfortus was like, we were close. I understand why you did what you did, even though it was a betrayal. And instead of actually killing you, I'm going to let you go and like let everyone think that you're dead. So that's one theory. Another theory could be the other Schwanenritter, Hildrick, who, quote, passed away due to multiple organ failure. May he rest in peace in the foreign land.
Mm-hmm.
There's a third one who is a lady called Inghilder, the damsel of the Dale, who went missing in the battle against the onslaught of dark beasts. Only her something and signet ring were recovered. A proper knight's funeral was arranged for her. I don't think it's her because I think, if I'm remembering correctly, when you get to the top of that ruin golem, you fight her. I think she appears, you actually have to fight her.
Okay.
But it could be Hadura or Hildrick. It's just fun to think about because it's like, we know he was Conrian. He had a platoon. He was noble. Like he was like in the good fight. So it made me think Schwanenritter.
Oh, it's definitely possible.
Yeah. And I'm also wondering and I'm not going to get deep into this, but I'm also wondering if he could have been the commander of Zephaniah and Irizar, who are two Conrian soldiers that saved the children of Echoes during the Cataclysm. And those characters are from a World Quest series called Shadows of the Mountains, which we will hopefully get into in a later episode.
I mean, who's to say that it's not in Fortis?
Yeah.
I mean, wait, what happened to him? I
We
guess
don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what happened to Fortis
Well,
yet.
we think he might be someone related to Kaya. We don't know for sure.
Ooh, what if Kaya shows up just in time to see Fortis die?
Fuck.
What if Amfortis is Kaya's dad and and Capitano all at the same time?
He meets his real dad, his real rotting dad, and then his dad dies.
It sounds right for him.
It
Yeah.
does.
Unfortunately, his little trauma. What if Krapus isn't dead and it's Krapus? No, I'm joking. Obviously, the timeline doesn't work, but it'd be fun. There's a lot that he could be. I mean, for
Yeah.
all we know, he could be an Archon. He could be Ermin. We don't know. Like, we're told that Ermin died, but we're really told that he fell.
Yeah, we know that he was a commander, right? And had a platoon. So he definitely seems like someone that was in the Conrian sort of like military, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Dainsleif probably knows.
That made me think Schwan and Ritter. Yeah, and he definitely is very aware of Dainsleif. So we haven't talked about the hole in the sky and the shattered moon.
Oh, yeah. I think that's like a dead moon sister.
Do you think so?
/ the primordial one and her egg. I mean it. Those are my two theories for that.
But so when Mavuika punches the hole in the sky, she's attacking the Eye of Sauron, right? Like the heart of the abyss thing that's like
Yeah.
spewing all this stuff. And so when the sky breaks open, we see these shattered pieces of something behind it. I'm assuming that was the device that was the Eye of Sauron. Did you all take it like that?
Oh, no. I just thought the Eye of Sauron was almost like a window, but that's a really good point.
Because I'm thinking like if it was like a quote unquote moon or whatever it was, if it was like a device, let's say it was a moon, right? Like it used to be a moon or whatever. And now it's on the other side of the fake sky and it's somehow creating a gateway into Teyvat to cross the fake sky. So does that mean that the crimson moon that we see during the Cataclysm cutscenes is something similar? And is the Abyss able to use these old moons, quote unquote, of Teyvat, as gateways? And was the fake sky built to cut them off from Teyvat? And is how one of the moon sisters is like the corpse that's still in the sky? Is it called the corpse because it got disconnected from the Abyss by the fake sky?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, I don't want to call the moon in the sky like definitely dead. Like, there's a part of me that even was like, I wonder if the primordial one was a moon sister somehow. And like, that's why the Sealies became envoys because, the primordial one was a moon and knew the Sealies.
So in this sort of line of theory, I'm thinking that the Moon Sisters, like that is just purely little legends or myths that are, you know what I mean? Like describing what is something else.
The childhood stories that reflect bigger stories.
Right. So I'm wondering if like they are devices that were somehow co-opted by the Abyss to infiltrate Teyvat.
Well, I wonder if the three moon sisters at that point are even the first three descenders, because we're the fourth.
Maybe.
We fucked everything up.
Also, there is what looks like a piece of a shattered moon thing in a hole in the ground in Natlan.
Yes, there's a small like world quest or story quest. World quest?
World quest, yeah.
World quest about that with a little kid. I liked dealing with that kid. He made me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "We're going in." I was like, "No."
That makes me wonder if that could be left over from, a quote unquote moon from the Cataclysm or maybe earlier, like when the fake sky wasn't there, before the sky nails maybe.
But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of questions as per usual. And I feel like I say this every episode anymore. Everything leaves us with more questions than answers. And I do feel like we got a few answers here. We know a lot more about the Natlan leyline system. We know a little bit more about Capitano and what he's been up to. And we know a little bit more about the Saritsa's plan. We'll also gain to meet new characters and learn more about them, which also gives you a better inkling of what's going on over here in Natlan. I think Citlali specifically really gives you a great look, like an introspective look into Natlan and the spiritual abilities of the people and the secrets that can be kept amongst the tribes as well. I mean, I feel like Citlali's tribe is really given like a brunt of issues to deal with.
Yeah.
I know all of them have their own thing, of course, but I'll definitely be curious to see where they take a lot of this from here.
I'm very excited about the next set of it. It feels like we learned so much, or we got so much confirmation to things that we had either assumed or picked up from all those different pieces. It was great.
And it felt so epic. I really felt like it reminded me of the Liyue finale on Crack.
Yes.
Just like an epic battle, but they really tried to make it like war, like
Yeah, they did.
Where you're like worn down by it and like feeling like the emotional weight of it.
Yeah, there was a mental exhaustion that came with it. I do want to add just quickly that, Kirara, she fell asleep. She's sleeping in the corner, and I am not going to torture her today. Yeah.
I mean, we've only been recording for 3.5 hours.
I know. So I might have tranquilized her. But, Kirara's asleep, so we aren't going to do a mail segment today. But Tiff brought up something earlier that was really important, I think, and we kind of brushed over it because we were talking about the story. But this Archon quest is mostly unvoiced. Not mostly. It is unvoiced by several characters, Kanich, Ahau, and Kachina in the English voiceover. For those of you who are doing the Nahida birthday party right now, or who did the Nahida birthday party before listening, you also know that basically everyone except for Cyno and Paimon are also muted, and that's a good time, Cyno and Paimon, though. And the reason for that is because there is a huge SAG voice actor strike going on right now. And I think there's a lot of confusion as to like why some characters are voiced and some aren't. And it would, regardless of what it is, I just want people to know, like, don't hate on either party here when it comes to the voice actors. There are voice actors who need money who are voicing the characters. And there are voice actors who may need the money but can take the break right now and are choosing to take a stance specifically against the Genshin recording studio of Formosa. And this also is something that is not on Genshin, it is on Formosa. So I just wanted to like put that out there and say, that we've been supporting SAG as much as we can with the little resources we have. But that's what's going on here. And so I know it sucks it sucks not having a How voiced.
That's the main drawback.
That's the main drawback is the How. But also like it hurts not to hear Kanish and not to hear Kachina. And you could definitely feel while you were playing the Archon like a different sense while playing.
It's really distracting. It's really jarring when like some of them are voiced and some are not. I would almost rather all of them not be, because you get zapped into like the voice line, like the actual hearing the voices, and then the next line is like silent. Or the next few lines are silent, and then you kind of get into like you're like reading it in your head and hearing it in your head, and then the next line is like voiced, and you're like, oh, like so it's like really discombobulating.
Yeah, and again, just reminding travelers that you have no one to blame except for Formosa and the other studios that are trying to use AI instead of voice actors. Or they're trying to recreate some of our favorite voice actors' voices in AI formatting. And normally we don't talk about serious stuff like that because like we talk about asses and we talk about buttholes and we talk about
asses and buttholes. What else?
Yeah, we talk about being
Cheeks.
Amanda. Like, we don't really offer a lot of authority in this area because we just don't. This isn't our area of expertise at all. But I just wanted to throw out there that we know it's hard for travelers, but hopefully these studios will come together soon. And if it's hard for you, it's hard for the voice actor. And remember that too. A lot of these people need the money to keep going, to make a living, and to support themselves. So while it sucks, just please be understanding and be nice to your voice actors. Or just have dreams that you're talking to a voice actor and they're like offering you their beach house.
Which voice actor hired you to say this is what I want to know.
Well, if anyone wants to sponsor me, a How came to me in a dream last night.
I knew it. I knew it was a How.
And he was like, I will take your soul if you don't do this.
Say this.
Yeah.
And I will take all travelers' souls if I hear you bitching about this.
Yeah.
Unless you're bitching to Formosa. But that being said, that is all... It's like, I want to say that's all the time we have for today, but that was a lot of time. We're tapped out, like phlogiston.
My voice is like about to collapse inside my throat.
If you made it to the end and you liked this episode, you can feel free to email us at talesofteyvat@gmail.com to let us know what you thought. You can also let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future, or let us know what you didn't like. Again, be kind. If you want to keep in touch with us, you can follow us on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat. Additionally, you can feel free to rate us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can feel free to buy us a cup of coffee / Diet Pepsi on Ko-fi, where all the money goes to caffeinating us, paying for our editing software, our web hosting, XYZ. Next week, we are going to be talking about Adeptus Fujin, which is really funny because she came up today. She also didn't try to help.
Wow.
But until next time, travelers, safe journeys. We'll see you then.
Bye, Vichama nerds.
Oh, Vichama died too.
Rest in peace.
He's
So
a
many
friend.
I'm glad you're with your lover.
Your lover.